That is so weird. Okay, well, you should be able to hear me now. For some reason, it's saying I don't have a GPU installed at the minute. NVIDIA Broadcast is messing up. Let's see if I can fix that. Yeah, you should be able to hear me now. Okay, mate, cool. Thank you. Yeah, let me know because I'm not running it through broadcast. Let me know if there's like tons of noise or whatever, and I'll try fix it. See what's going on here though. I think I maybe just needed to reboot it. It'd gone a bit doolally. Okay. Alright, now we're gonna switch it back over. Okay, you should be able to. Yeah, that's good. That's good. We're good now. We're good. Let's close that. All right. Good. So, yes, you can hear the music. Okay. Okay, cool. So I think over on YouTube, so I'm trying this multi-stream thing, trying to get back the multi-stream back working. On YouTube, this shouldn't be playing. You should only be able to hear my voice because I obviously don't want to get sued. Yeah, okay. So the idea is, today, we're going to do a little bit of exploring of these ideas. So these are some questions that I've been discussing with another one of our lovely content creators in the community, Lolcohol. And the idea is we're basically gonna. I want to kind of just explore, as you know, as we do. I want to kind of explore what's possible with crafting in PoE 2. Obviously, we're very much in the dark at the minute. They have this like very early version of the system that kind of I imagine they had working quite well for the campaign. In the interviews, they were talking a lot about how for the campaign they wanted, there to be more exalt drops and, these guaranteed kind of catch-up mechanic drops and all this stuff. It seems like once you applied that to a massive economy in trade, in an end game with loads of rarity and quant scaling, like they haven't had enough time to really like test it or whatever. So can be disabled. Okay, that's cool. Hey Evolution, how you doing, mate? So Shiro, what's going on, guys? What's going on? So yeah, we are trying multi-streaming. Alex Mackay's here. No music on YouTube. That's good. Don't want to get sued. I need to figure out maybe a way to get like some music on YouTube that is fully like licensed and stuff that I can also play at the same time, maybe, or something. We'll figure it out. Yeah, I'm all good, guys. I'm all good. So yeah, the idea of this stream is one, just to test my stream, like to test my PC and multi-streaming, and I've got I need to basically get into the hang of it, so that we don't have a disastrous league launch like we did for early access launch, which was so saddening. I got so bummed out about it. So we'll see how we go, and we'll try and refine all our settings and stuff over time. But yeah, the actual content of this stream is going to be just like looking at some of these questions I was chatting to Lolcohol about tonight, and just kind of like asking questions about what the vision of. Obviously we can't know GGG's vision. They're going to tell us more, no doubt, on the live stream in a couple of days. But yeah, like what is it that like they could do, and what are the goals here, and then like what can we maybe like think about ways that they could go about it. As you know, we like to do that kind of stuff. Who we got? Oh, it's too small on my screen right there. Amson, hey mate, thanks for the follow. So yeah, we're gonna try and answer some of these questions. And this is like, you guys will have probably seen other podcasts that Lolk's been on, where he's kind of like trying to debate this thing of like, why don't we have re-rolling? Why don't we have scourers? what is the thing that like they're actually trying to achieve with ground loot, you know, and stripping back all the crafting options. So, because essentially in PoE 2, the way that I see it, let's try and like lay out kind of where we're at, I guess. Okay. So, we're in a situation where we've got like, you know, super high. The goal was, let's call this our understanding. Our understanding is that the goal was to make ground loot matter, right? That was kind of the thing that was like pushed out by GGG. I think it was like just like over many interviews really, but the idea that, you know, you pick something up, and that's like where the best items come from, kind of. And that's kind of how it's worked out, right? Like, I mean, not exactly, obviously, as the economy developed and as the league progressed, but I think for most average players, I've played quite a lot. I'm definitely not in the top, I don't know, I'm not in the top like 10, 20% of like, you know, players and currency and that kind of thing. But really crafting's like super, super gated behind, yeah, it's really gated behind super high-end crafting. And there's not much in the middle. For everyone else, it's like you just kind of hope you find stuff and then obviously identify with extra steps, as people have been saying. And I think the idea was, so the idea of getting rid of a lot of the power in crafting and re-rolling, actually we'll get into re-rolling in a second, but like by removing all the power of crafting, you then obviously make ground loot matter more by definition. However, the argument, which I think is a valid argument, or the critique, is that you've kind of just taken away all of the ways that enabled most players to access good items and to craft good items. And you've basically just said, cool, well, you either trade for it or you get lucky. So they've kind of like, they have made ground loot matter more than crafting, but certainly in a trade environment, they've just made trading compulsory, essentially, which is really not a good state of the game. Like, I think what you really want is essentially like 3 camps. Let's have a look. Or maybe it's just like 2 camps. You want crafting on one side. Yeah, I wonder what the Venn is. Let's try and like work out this Venn diagram here. Because you've got crafting, then you've got oh, get rid of that. Yeah, you got crafting and then you've got drops, right? I wonder. Is there any other kind of vector? Because you've got obviously just like currency farming, but then that's like trade, right? Yeah, trade is the third for non-SSF players, obviously. And right now it just feels like crafting's like here. Drops are, you know, super, that should be like a freaking spiky circle. It's just like hugely, and then you've got trade, which is just like eating up everything else. This is, I know this is not an actual Venn diagram, I'm just trying to visualize something in my mind. Yeah, it's a bit too RNG-ish, and find it more tedious to pick up loot and identify compared to art. Exactly, right? So what's happened is we've kind of replaced like alt and chaos slamming and like essence slamming, whatever kind of re-roll mechanic you want to talk about. We've just replaced that with like picking up loads of stuff and IDing it. And that actually really, I think, sums up like the main issue here, like what's gone wrong. Again, I want to caveat basically everything I'm saying here with like the acknowledgement that the devs at GGG are not, they know all this stuff. They spend all day thinking about this stuff. These are like people that have proven their skill. I think they just haven't had enough time. This isn't to say they don't know how to solve this. I just think in the meantime, while they haven't solved it, it's interesting to kind of think about. Because another thing is, I think we might come up with some interesting perspectives on it that maybe isn't the direction that they're kind of heading down and the way they're thinking. And I obviously just enjoy doing that because I find it really interesting. And I think it can kind of like obviously potentially work as feedback for GGG, but also then just like I think expands our knowledge of like how item systems can work in games from like a game design perspective. But when you use crafting, there is some degree of control versus just pick it up an ID. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, crafting is by definition like agentic, right? Like it's very highly agentic. You are you yeah, it's not that it's deterministic. It's like you are taking actions and getting more specific results, right? So this is kind of just like an illustration of, I guess, where we're at the minute. I need to lock that. Can I lock that? Yeah. No? What's that? What is Dawn of the... okay, got it. There we go. Yeah, that is just an illustration of like, I guess, the minute crafting is just like non-existent basically, unless you're in like the super high end. So let's just have a look at what are Locke's questions, and then we'll try and kind of like understand how to potentially answer them. What is the perceived problem? What is desired? What does he mean by that? What is the... Yeah, what is the perceived problem? So that is from like GGG. I think what he's getting at is like from GGG, what is it that they're like essentially think is the problem that they're trying to fix? Fane, Guitaraholic, what's going on, guys? Welcome in, welcome in. It's good to see you. Let me know if you can hear me all right and audio levels are all good and that kind of stuff. Hey, bystander, how you doing, mate? You could have ground loop matter more with a full crafting system, but having drop only mods like so this is the thing, right? The more I think about this, Scandals, cheers for the follow, mate. The more I think about this, the more the more I can't help but turn into like a Last Epoch fanboy, and I really don't want to do that. Like I don't want. Essentially, the idea, guys, is I'm starting to explore these questions that me and sort of I've been chatting to Logcole about, and I've been starting to just explore this idea in my mind like a bit. And ultimately, I want to make a video about this. I think what we're gonna do is I'm going to sort of play around with the ideas for a bit, and then I think we're going to do like a live stream where me and Lolk just like go through it, and we just... I keep calling him Lolk because it's like, in my head, that's what I call him, but like, I have no idea if... I'm not used to saying that out loud because I don't have to say his name very often. But yeah, Lolkahole, we'll jump on like a stream and then we'll brainstorm a load of stuff. And we'll actually try and like come up with some stuff, and then what I'll do is then visualize that like I normally do in a lot of the videos. We'll visualize it all into, you know, like an actual presentation of like, hey, this is how this could be like different, etc, etc, and we'll flesh it all out. Glad the audio is good, and let me know if we're getting like tons of frame drops or anything like that, guys, because I obviously, yeah, so this is a big test. Lol plus alcohol, you got this. Oh yeah, so it's like Lolcohol, right? Like I can totally say his name fine. It's, I always call, in my head I'm always like, Lolk. Like Lolk, I'll just shorten his name to that. And I have no idea if anyone else does that or if he actually like even likes that. So I'll ask him when we jump on a call. Does ground loot actually not matter? Yeah, so that's like obviously a fundamental thing, is like, is there actually a problem with ground loop? Having purpose is specifically the question, because you could easily say, well, yeah, there's a problem with ground loop because there's too much of it, right? Which is again a thing that they've tried to solve with the tier system, and I think I've got thoughts on that as well. We will get into all this. Okay, I appreciate you, Sashiro. Thank you, mate. Legendary Barry, what's up, dude? They wanted to solve the alt spamming, and ground loop mattering is secondary. Yeah, the problem is we've ended up in a situation where instead of alt spamming. We are like ID spamming, where we're like getting RSI from freaking like moving so many items around in our inventory, and then like, you know, picking so much stuff up essentially. Like the amount of, you know, I was playing a monk, or I shouldn't say a monk, I should say a quarterstaff build, because I think actually builds are defined by their weapons, right? But yeah, I was playing a quarterstaff build, and so I was picking up every barrier staff, crescent staff, can't remember the other ones, but slicing or whatever, and just IDing tons of stuff, and it's just all trash. Obviously, it's all trash. So yeah, I actually have some interesting ideas here that we will get into shortly. Legendary, what are you saying on Last Epoch? But in Last Epoch, it does due to the extra mod tiers and sharing. Yeah, this is the thing. Like Last Epoch, I imagine most of you guys have played it, but if you haven't, I've been playing a lot more of it recently, and actually at the end of the stream, like the second half of the stream, whatever, we might just like jump on and play some stuff. I've sort of been doing some like campaign run throughs just to get some like leveling, so it's a bit smoother when we do launch on like April 17th or 18th or whatever it is. Because I actually think like I feel like this update for Last Epoch is gonna like bring the game from, like, in my opinion, what was like a probably like a 7 to like a, you know, an 8-9, like bring it up to like a top tier kind of ARPG. I think a weird, I'm actually going to make a video about this, I think, but I think weirdly Last Epoch is going to kind of overtake PoE potentially in this like initial phase, where PoE 2 needs like quite a bit more time to develop. Anyway, that's just a hot topic. But yeah, Last Epoch like handle all this stuff really, really well. And the dynamic is, yeah, how do you make like these three things matter, right?
The
like,
Emperor is enriched by the loyalty of his
oh
subjects.
my god, Maple coming in strong. Thank you so much, mate. What a legend. Appreciate you so much. Thanks for that, man. That's very, very cool. I wish that my... Oh, it's really annoying. I can't see.
The Emperor is enriched by the loyalty of his subjects.
Sick. Cheers, Guitar. Thanks a lot, mate. Appreciate you. Glitch Cat. Wow. Ellie really go. Gonna be that good. I'm down to try it. Ah, why is it? All right. Okay, guys. This is why we're doing these streams early, because I'm trying to figure out. I'm using Stream Elements multi-stream. I guess half of you won't give a crap about what I'm using. Sounds are a tad loud. Okay, I will turn down the alerts a little bit. Cool. See, look, yeah, just feeling out the stream, slowly figuring it out. But yeah, I can't see your messages fully at the minute, which is really annoying. Ellie's gonna be that good. Down to try it. Something. Jeez Louise, Sashira coming in with 9 months. Oh my god, thank you so much, guys. Seriously, that's really cool. Oh man, you guys are too generous. This is like, I was literally just gonna jump on tonight and be like, oh yeah, just kind of like easing myself back into it. So yeah, thanks. I didn't expect this was like a test stream. Appreciate you. Definitely want to, and I guess like the point is, I definitely want to be streaming a lot more. So yeah, I will be around for the 9 months for you to enjoy that subscription. Yeah, my thoughts on Last Epoch are just that I was like kind of bought it. I bought it when it launched, so I haven't been playing forever. I've been playing for like, you know, I don't know, 12 months or 9 months or whatever no, it's been a year now, hasn't it? Been about a year. And I thought, oh, cool, there's some really interesting ideas like here and stuff. And the more I played it, the more I was like, oh, that's a really clever solution to this problem, you know, around solo self-found. You know, we know about the faction stuff and all that kind of thing. But the end game was a bit draggy, as we all know, or like as has been widely discussed. And so I really struggled to get into that like deep like build min-maxing and that kind of thing. That being said, it seems like the update is just going to solve like basically every single concern I had about the game and every single problem that I had with the game, and it seems like that's going to be the case for a lot of people. So I feel like all of a sudden it's gone, like I say, it's gone from like a 6 or 7 game in my mind personally to like a 8, 9. We'll have to see when we get our hands on it, but yeah, it seems like super exciting what they're doing. The way they're solving like the set item problem, which PoE's just decided to stay clear of. Interestingly, actually, as a side tangent, when I was making the Beastery video the other day, I was like, oh crap, beast like aspect items and essentially Beastery uniques are kind of the closest thing that we've got to set items in PoE. Like they're the only thing that I can think of that is essentially works kind of like a set item, where the more pieces you add, the more powerful the base effect is. Anyway, that's a bit of a side tangent. What are we saying? I feel the uniques is what makes ground loot exciting. Yeah, I think there's like legendary in Last Epoch. They have like legendary potential and like all these systems, which is just freaking genius. Like the developers over there and the people coming up with these systems, they've clearly got so much incredible design talent on the team. And it's really cool to see what they've been cooking. And I think it's going to be cool because I think it's going to force like GGG, who also clearly have a lot of talent, to like really stay on their game, and that's good for all of us. Yeah, GGG did say that they experimented with the crafting shard system, yeah. And I think it would have probably been a bit too close to Last Epoch. I mean, I don't think they're too concerned about... Actually, I can't really say this. It's a really ambiguous topic. Like, they must be concerned about looking like copying Last Epoch, right? But at the same time, like, what is it? Great artists steal. Great artists... good artists borrow, great artists steal. Something like that, right? You get the best kind of stuff by just, like, taking the best ideas and bringing them into your thing. Yeah. So, hey, Curson. How you doing, mate? What did you think of mech character in PoE 2? Do you know what? I'd be so down if they did something like... I thought like a really cool Ascendancy idea would be, like Animated Guardian. If they did something like that. Essentially what like the Forge... the Forge Warrior classes or whatever in Last Epoch, right? Like someone who kind of has like... oh, there's a name for it in D&D. An artificer, someone who's like animating weapons and stuff like that. I mean, they've got basically guns in the game now, so they're not far off steampunk, medieval punk. Anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand. Yeah, an artificer would be really cool. I think they're going to do something more like the mercenary kind of like bandit lord, like the veteran idea, ascendancy that we came up with, or something like that, or like the gang leader kind of thing, where you have like other mercs that you're kind of controlling, almost like human minions or like bandits or something. I think that would be really cool, and that's what I think they were hinting at in that artwork. Exactly. Why reinvent the wheel, right? However, there's lots of different ways to kind of build a wheel. So just because it's round and rolls doesn't mean that they're all built the same. And I think PoE, can definitely have its own flavor of like solving these problems, because I think Ellie has done it really well. So the problems are, yeah, we're just going to kind of like logically work through these. Let's write the questions out first, and then I can freaking have that ready and not worry about it. If ground loot doesn't matter, the third question is, yeah, if ground loot doesn't matter, or doesn't matter enough, what is the actual reason? So these questions are essentially like really like first principles questions of trying to like break the situation down and ask, is this true? If so, is this true? Ground loot, why doesn't ground loot matter? I could spell. If true, why doesn't ground loot matter? Okay, and then the fourth question would be, where do players acquire gear currently? I'm rewriting these because I really want to just like understand them as in my own context. I can never spell acquire. I always get that wrong. Currently. Where do they get gear? Currently. Yeah, I think a technomancer artificer would be a bit too far away from the current power fantasy. Yeah, the PoE is very like a dark fantasy, isn't it? But it's kind of like a. It's weird. It's what like I think of as like grim. You know, it's that like kind of grim, but it's not low magic, obviously. It just has that vibe of it, which is interesting. Hey, cheers for the follow, mate. Appreciate it. Welcome in. Yeah, okay. Next question is, if crafting ruins ground loot, why do we still filter out most stuff? Oh, interesting hot take coming from Locahole. But it's a good question. Like, okay, if crafting kills ground loot. Okay, so the question is, like, even with no crafting, why do we still filter most items? What is the desired item progression pathway? Why does ground loot matter more than having agency over your item? Yeah, okay. What is the desired item progression? Or that's a really, I think that's a great question, and that they will have definitely asked themselves 100 times. Or for an average player, that is obviously. Okay. So, what is the perceived problem? The perceived problem was, I think, from their point of view, that ground loot didn't matter, right? Ground loot was too. Yeah, it was too meaningless because you could reroll. So I think the actual problem that they had with it wasn't just that like there's loads of ground loot and that kind of thing. It seemed to me that there's this philosophical, and so much of this is, I think, philosophical, and I think it's important to have like that consideration as well as the design consideration, right? Because you can have a great philosophy and terrible design, and then you end up in a situation where like, oh, we had the best intentions, but the thing's not fun, right? Which is what a lot of people kind of critique or whatever. But then equally, if you have no overarching philosophy, you end up with something that's kind of potentially just like overly gamified or like is incoherent philosophically. I'm gearing from GGG's point. The only ground loot that had an impact was high tier bases. Yes. So the problem was you would find a high tier base, and then just re-roll that forever. So you've kind of like, you know, unless you obviously varled it, and you could just re-roll it forever. Basically, you only ever needed one like high tier item base, and I think it's like an important thing to give my like to caveat all of this with like I don't think PoE 1's system was that far off. I definitely don't think it's perfect, and this is where the philosophy is important because I really sympathize with this that I'm about to write here, which is like I there was like a the only way I can describe it is there was like a dephysicalization of the item. So if you can just re-roll it, kind of like makes the too gamey, if that makes sense. I think this is where they're coming at from it from. Like I think what's been communicated is that okay, well, if you can just re-roll the thing, then everything else is worthless, right? And that there is some truth to that. But it's also like a feel thing that I think, okay, well, you are taking away a lot of like the purpose of like any rares dropping or anything if you can re-roll everything. I have some really good, I think I have some good ideas on this, so I want to just like kind of get into it, but it's important to go through this process. Um, you need to have uses for gear that is not perfect for you. That is how you get it to work. I'm not sure 100% what it is you mean by that, Curson. Cursayan, is that Kirkian? Um, Making ground loot valuable seems like a solution they want and went searching for a problem that causes it rather than coming up with another way of making it valuable. Yeah, I would agree with that, guitar. Yeah. So I think like the acknowledgement of the problem is actually real. I think like there's a reason to philosophically do something different here and try and get away from a system. Like we'll get into the tier system. This is what they've tried to do with the item tiering system of making like rares actually mean something, right? How do you make them mean something? But we've ended up in just like a pure RNG situation, like Cody's saying. Items drop unidentified. Yeah. Do you know what, Barry? You're right on that as well. I think the whole ID, like Summit last Epoch did really well, was allow you to filter items based on their actual affixes, and that kind of offers the player like the ultimate loot filter ability. Then all of a sudden. But I do think there is a slightly different way that we could approach this without exposing affixes. Okay, we're going to rattle through these. What is the perceived problem? The ground loot was too meaningless because you could re-roll and infinitely craft. Okay, is there actually a problem with ground loot having purpose? Yes. So I would just having no purpose. I think that was, what was the original question? Does ground loot actually not matter, or is this in line? So, certain types of ground loot matter. Okay, so, like uniques, obviously, high level bases, currency, of course. However, rares and items. It's basically like rares, really. Like rares have no function. Is that fair to say, guys? Like rares are basically useless. I think this was like the entire problem. No, it's not the entire problem. I'd be short-sighted to say that. It seems a really important problem. Okay, let's. If true, why doesn't ground loot matter? Well, it does matter, so we've kind of answered that. Oops. God damn it, Bama. By the way, this music is just giving me the nicest little chill vibes ever. It does. What are we saying? Can you repeat the question? Can you repeat the question? My question is, is it only rares that don't matter? So two things. One, the fact that you can infinitely reroll means that item bases kind of don't matter once you've got one. Kind of. Obviously, like over quality and yeah, because even with what's it, blessed orbs, you can re-roll the implicit range, so that's no good. Yeah. Anyway, so but it's mainly rares, I think. That's the way I'm seeing the problem. No, it's not really correct. Okay, so Shiro hit me. Rares are amorphous, which means they can fill any role and be flexible, which is required to fit the myriad of builds. Others. Yeah, so sorry, to be clear, I'm not saying that rares don't matter in the game, as a item vertical. What I'm saying is that rares that drop don't matter. So dropping like from a ground loot perspective, this is they just don't matter. That's what I need to copy, not that. There we go. Where do players acquire gear currently? So trade site currently in PoE 2, right? That's it. Once you get to endgame, like, even with no crafting, why do we still filter most items? Yeah, so why do we still filter most items? Because there's too many of them dropping. I know this seems super stupid and obvious to answer these questions, but this is like just a good exercise to go through as a grounding exercise. What is the desired item progression look like for players? Okay, that's a bigger question that we're gonna have to get into. Get rid of all that. Okay, so I've got a thing here, which is like one suggestion. I think this is where the shard system of Ellie is a solid solution and the original crafting bench idea could have worked, but GGG took it out. What does it matter if I drop an item with 5 T1 top mods, but they are wrong for my build, or just a bad combo? That's where being able to pull something out of an item for use in the crafting or another system can make it really valuable. There's no real reason to use them outside of Act 1 or 3. Yeah, do you know what? I think it's... Okay. So what we have to look at, I think, is... Do you know what I need? Do you know what I need to do? I need to plug in. I'll set this up for the next stream, but I bought a tablet, and I could just sketch stuff a lot easier instead of like trying to like do it in a more presentations kind of format. But we could just move over to where is Photoshop? Here we go. Right, I can just sketch using my mouse for this. Flashbang, sorry. Also probably a bit loud. Okay. F. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, let's what's going on? So, I think MS Paint incoming. So I think basically the more powerful you make crafting, the more that you diminish the power of obviously drops, right? This is kind of the dichotomy that we're in. However, I don't think it's as simple as that. And obviously, like, you know, last Epoch has shown this with like the shard system and stuff. Now, do I think they should do a shard system? No. Because I think there's like other ways to solve this, right? The first question is like, what if... So they've got this tier system of like 1 to 5. And I think the idea of this was really like a really good solution. They're trying to make rares drop more powerfully, but like you said, like if they just drop and they're fixed, then like what's the point, right? I would make the argument that like why not just with rares, why not make them super rare to drop, right? So instead of dropping like, let's say you dropped like, I don't know. What do you think you drop? Like maybe 100 rares in a map at the minute? Something like that? Or 50 rares? Yeah, like the drop only mods are genius in Last Epoch for sure. Like exalted items and like Last Epoch just had this whole freaking like amazing thing. Lefterist coming up with a the Crucible tree throwback. Love that. Yeah, imagine that. So originally, there's a really good point you bring up, Barry. Like, imagine that originally their intention was, oh, we don't think you'll need a loot filter. What? What? And now they've immediately, like, you know, arguably the big, I play with some console players. The biggest problem was, like, they were like, oh, of all the things that we were moaning about, like, them having to fix in the game, they were like, please just give us a loot filter. That's, like, the number one thing we want, which is hilarious, which is a failure of the system, really. So let's just talk about rares for now, right? So we've got this, like, you had, like, tiers 1 to 5. But you're getting, like, 100 per map or something crazy, right? You're getting, like, 100 rares per map. Really, what if you brought this down to, like, literally, you get 1 rare per map, right? Let's just like try and imagine this system, right? Like maybe you get 1 to 2, right? But take this tier system. So they've obviously got this like minimum roll system, which was kind of like introduced to us through Necropolis League, where you were basically like cutting off the bottom tiers, which is what, from our understanding, they're doing with this. And you can't favor types of mods because then you get into a build homogeny problem. So you can't say, okay, we're going to drop a T5 rare will also have like always have increased fizz rolls on a weapon or something, right? Because then what if someone wants lightning and cold for this niche thing, or you know what I'm saying? So it just affects the tiers. Why not make all rares that drop in this like 1 to 2 per map thing drop with at T3, right? So get rid of the tier system, but in the back end, essentially they drop with like, you know, anywhere from like T2 to 3, right? So like the base rare now so if you ever drop a rare, you know, obviously this is all going to come with like loads of other changes. So like, please point them out as, you know, as they come up, right? Like other things that you think of. But I know there's like knock-on effects to like, because this then affects the role of magic items, and then you need to change all this other stuff. We're going to get into this. We're just like mapping this out. This is very early, sort of loose kind of conversation. And I'll find a way to mesh all these ideas together where it makes sense. But let's just say like, yeah, it rolls like T2 to 3 at the minute, right? So you can only get essentially like mid to upper tier rolls. Then I think you want to have, so that's like 1 to 2 per map, right? And then I think every like 2 to 3 maps, you want to drop an item, maybe even like fewer than that, maybe every 5 maps or something. I think you want to drop a rare that is like, I'm going to call it a blessed rare, right? Yeah, weird name. We're just going to go with it, right? And this blessed rare, what it does is it takes like the expedition system and it re-rolls. It's essentially like lucky rolls. So let's say it's like a T2 that will roll, you know, or this like whatever this new like base rare is, right? It's going to take that and then it's going to like re-roll it 10 times. Right? Oh my god, I need to get the pen working. This is harder to do. I don't know how teachers do this or whatever. So, contention in alpha, where a lot of the early feedback with testers saying that they were so starved for loot. A lot of them say that early access. Yeah, so this is the thing. And I think this is where like increasing crafting systems is going to sort out a lot of the like average, that bell curve of problems of like most players in the middle are just who are just, you know, most players are just looking for average loot, kind of by definition, right? As they go through the game, you're always going to have outliers, and that's what makes it fun when you get something really powerful. But there is a like average of power at every point in the game, from Act 1 all the way to like, you know, T16, 17s. So let's say this like this blessed rare essentially is just like the new base rare type that you drop. This is like a reroll thing. And I think what could be really cool for this is if you like took these blessed rares could only be identified by a vendor in town, right? Like imagine like, you know, the freaking, what's his name? The hooded one, right? Sin, or like by someone in town, right? You take them to your hideout and they unveil them. And as they unveil them, you can see the item, and essentially, like, it goes through each affix and kind of re-rolls it like a number of times. And maybe you get some blessed rares. You could add a bit more RNG to this, so like, or a bit more like excitement or whatever, where like some blessed rares have like 8 rerolls and some get 20 rerolls or whatever, right? It's kind of like, I guess it's the closest thing in Last Epoch to like Weaver's Will to a degree, but it's not exactly the same. But the idea is you take these blessed rares, say you stack up like 5 of them from your session of playing or whatever, and then they roll, you know, like, and they just keep re-rolling the tiers until, you know, they're until they're done, until you get the best one. And so it's kind of like ROG crafting, expedition crafting in that way. I think this could be like a way of basically making, I guess the point of this, regardless of how you do it, is you want to just make rares feel rare, for one, and you want to make them powerful, like when they do drop. However, the problem, the kind of thing you've like then got is like I think it was Guitar said, or Sashiro earlier, is like, well, what if it doesn't have, you know, what if you're playing mana stacking and it has life, right, on it, or, you know, whatever, something you don't want. What do you do then? Obviously, you can chaos it, and I actually think, like, the chaos change is good, because I don't think we should go back to infinite re-rolling. But you end up in this situation where, like, you're kind of stuck with whatever you get. And that's, like, again, that I don't think that's inherently a problem. Like, this randomness, this gambly feeling is actually okay to a degree. It's just like, it's like the whole of the item game at the minute. So you can see the mod scrolling and troll you with epic mod. Yeah, bystander on YouTube saying, like, wouldn't it be funny if you could actually, like, it was re-rolling the mods. What I think would be interesting is, so the idea here is not that it's re-rolling the mods itself, it's re-rolling the tiers of the mods. And so, because I think that the actual mods themselves should be controlled by crafting. Like, one of the coolest hybrids that we got in PoE 1 was veiled, like veiled mods, right? Where you would get to pick one of 3. And I think something like that would actually be, oh, that's interesting, actually. Ooh. Ooh. I sound like a Zara then. The path of the warrior. What does he say? The path of the traveler. If they are rare enough, you could do a short pick system like Veiled. Oh, right, yeah. Evolutionary. We got to the same idea. Love it. I just want to dash more agency in my RNG. Yeah, so I think the crafting system is where that agency needs to come from. So the cool thing about ground loot, that's it. This is a good point to make, actually. Is like, from your ground loot, you want agency in your crafting. It's just detail. So you want agency in your crafting. You want jackpot RNG in your drops, and then in trade, if you're gonna deal with trade, you want constrained supply and instant buyouts. I think you want constrained supply. No, what do you? I don't know. The trade thing is a separate question. We can get onto that. Yeah. What if? Okay, these blessed rares. What if actually we don't need to reinvent the wheel here, and actually these are veiled rares. Dun dun dun. Because veiled items were like one of the coolest things that like ever got added to PoE 1, I think. For me personally, like, I thought there was nothing cooler than, like, you'd get this veiled item and then you get these, like, you know, powerful drop only mods, essentially. And that's a way that you can make this stuff drop only as well. And I think the drop only element is a really important thing to make ground loot matter. That, you know, Last Epoch is interesting actually because I think this is like testament to the success of drop only stuff. Is they did drop only with exalted mods, right? And then what they've now done is doubled down on that and now said you get drop only champion affixes. So my understanding of how this champion affix system works is you kill certain champion mobs like powerful rares, and depending on what mods what type the champion was, they're going to drop an item with that champion mod sealed on it. So it's a drop only sealed thing, and that is really cool. It's like so now they're adding multiple ways that drop only is good, which is cool. We're cooking. We're cooking now, guys. We're cooking. They would need to make it. It's funny, you come into this stuff sometimes, you're like, I have no idea how I'm going to figure this out. And then random ideas just pop out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, cool. This is why I love doing this on stream with you guys. Because it's just so much, you get like to better ideas so much quicker. Could be a good way to do it, but there should be a way, I think, to have itemized veil affixes as well, but keep the veiled orb and keep them lower rolls. Yeah. Yeah, maybe the veiled orb's important to have in the game. It's just rare, like it is at the minute, right? Like you pay a lot for a, and obviously the way that they changed veiled orbs in PoE 1. They would need to make a system where you put X amount of gold up for your item to be a set amount of time. The natural life cycle of the items in the markets is important. Yeah, Sirkin. I think Sirkane. I think that's how I say your name, Sirkane. The one thing about LE gear is there's a lot less impact on character power. Interesting. I would have to really think about that to know how true that is, but I'm going to just defer to you and say you may well be right on that. Yes, yeah. Well, yeah, you're right to a degree. Sashiro, what you're saying about veiled mods, you're right to a degree that you can't just drop uber powerful drop only mods, otherwise that dictates the base market. I agree with you. I actually think that there should be more variety in bases. Yeah, I think there should be more variety in bases than we currently have. In terms of the variance of their quality. Yes, I think so. This is why forging potential was like kind of a cool thing in but that, again, really don't want to go down like the last E, but they've done it a cool way. But I think they're definitely a really good reference. So what if instead, yeah, you had veiled rares, right? So then this means, this is so good. This is actually such a good solution, I think. I really want to be right about this. Because if you now get rid of the tiers and you just say, okay, and you massively reduce the number of rares that drop to like 1 to 2, right? Per map. You know, say 2 with like 100% rarity on average, obviously this is. Okay. What you then do is like make every rare worth picking up and identifying, obviously, and potentially craftable because you've got like already potentially a good base of ways to craft it somehow. But on top of this, that's like the RNG thing. But then what you're doing with this like veiled rares are they're like more powerful. They potentially have like higher base tiers. So say they would be like a tier 4 equivalent role, not a tier 5. Say a tier 4 equivalent role, and they have a veiled mod on them. Screw it, you could go crazy and even have like 2 veiled mods on them in like some exceptional circumstances, which is kind of like you're then getting an equivalent of what like LE was able to achieve, where you have, you know, you get these exalted mods, and you can get 2 exalted mods on an item, and you're like, whoa, that's like super rare. I've got like a dual T7 item or something. You're like, wow. But the cool thing about that is that in PoE, I kind of think almost a better way of doing it with the veiled mods is like you're actually just getting to choose those mods there and then, which is so cool. Because then you're feeling like you have an influence. And then when you do identify the item, take it back to town and you unveil it like you would with Jeune, you there is that real sense of identifying an item. Like, oh my god, what mods am I gonna pull, you know, from the pool? Oh my god, I actually love it, guys. I think that's like, can anyone see any like major issues with this? We're gonna get onto bases and stuff in a minute. I just wanted to basically solve, like, in my mind, try and like approach the rare problem, because I think one of the biggest issues is so you got two things you want ground loot to be good for. You want to get the excitement of dropping something powerful, like uniques, good currencies. We already have that. That works. Well, the uniques is gonna come in time, I'm sure. But you want rares to feel powerful. Currently, they don't. So we've solved that. And then you want bases and good bases and that crafting bases. That's going to come with like new crafting systems and new bases. So we'll get onto that. Okay, I'm going to just catch up with what you guys are saying because I'm really curious. With this system as well, unveiled bases would add greater value on trade, so you could pick your own. Yeah. Yeah, do you know what? Evolution, you're right about that, you know. So, one thing that would lead to is, say I drop an item that has a veiled mod on it, and it's like, but it's not for my character, then you're able to sell that with additional value potentially, right? Because you're kind of offering this like, hey, well, when you unveil it, you know, you can buy this and unveil it yourself and then see what you get. Which is kind of cool. It's like selling a pack of Pokemon cards to someone. Like you're selling something with kind of inherent value. But you're not sure how much. But it's not quite the same as buying like an un-ID'd thing, because obviously you've got like the 5 other mods there or whatever, or 4 other mods. Because remember, these aren't going to roll like, you know, they're not always going to drop 6 modded. So you have the ability to like potentially add your own mods and stuff on there as well. Very cool. Very, very, very cool. The incubator system could be introduced. Krathen, hello mate, welcome to the chat. You're saying that the incubator system could be introduced. Kills or XP required to choose which base you would drop. There's potentially something there, but I feel like that's a really fine grain. That would be more like maybe once we've really fleshed out these like core systems, something additional like that incubator thing. I think right now, like, we're trying to really think about like, how can we change the core drop pool and like the core way that we interact with drops. But I know what you're getting at. I do understand what you're getting at, and I think there's definitely something there. Yeah, because like, okay, one thing, for example, could be like, you know, a veiled orb could allow you to re-roll the veiled mod on an item or something. There's loads of ways you could mess around with this. Lefteris, I think it should be something more inherent to the item, something that is even on a white item, like an implicit modifier. It's also why I bought up Crucible trees. So I loved Crucible, and I think there's actually a really exciting thing that could go on there. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting thing that could go on with Crucible. But we'll get to that. Should they be able to be an end of it all item? End of it all item. I'm not sure if I'm reading that right. End of it all item, or just the first step of a crafting journey. Yeah, so this is like the crafting journey, I guess, comes on to like the question that Lolcol was asking, which is like, what is the intended journey, right? Like, what is the desired item progression look like for a player? And that is as much a design decision as it is a like perfected thing. That, you know, there's no one way, one size fits all there. Do you a favor and ban Widowed Grinder? How do I do that? I don't even know where that person is. Oh. Okay. Yes. Do you know what? I need to make mods. I need to Who wants to be a mod? Because this is only going to become more of a problem where I'm using like third-party software to handle things, and I can't ban directly, and I have to then completely go off on a tangent. But I will get to you, Sashiro. Oh yeah, Cody, on your side note about transfigured gems, they will 100% bring something like transfigured gems eventually into the game, I think, because it was just a hands-down win for everyone. But at the minute, they haven't even designed the core skills, so let alone the alternate versions that they want to make. So yeah, it will come, I'm sure. Maple, would it be cool to have unveiling not be attached to a bench? Be able to meditate and unveil wherever you are? Then it would be attached to a syndicate-esque mechanic. Oh, then it wouldn't be attached. Yeah, I was thinking you could literally just do it at like the unveil NPC in town. The point, yeah, I like the idea with these because these are like essentially going to be like, you know, the idea is they're kind of like dink, like, you know, dink drops, you know, they're like you would have them very high on your loot filter, where when you get a veiled, you know, it's not like PoE 1 where you're getting loads of veiled mods each map from running Syndicate. It would be like core drop pool, you get a veiled mod from like a rare, maybe you could only drop them from rares, and maybe those rares, because God, I could wax lyrical about this game forever, but I think they probably need to relook at how they're doing rares as well. It would be nice to have like a variation of rares from like power levels that is visible to us. But yeah, whatever. That's a whole other thing. So you drop this, like, you know, you get like a ding and you're like, okay, cool. Like I've got a veiled rare item here. I like the idea that because they're not dropping super often, you take them back. And maybe you'd get like, you know, 5 in a session, or, you know, if you're running 25 maps, or, you know, I don't know how long your guys' sessions are, but isn't the reason it's attached to events that you cannot sneak peek the items mods and then sell it? No, because you can sell veiled items anyway. Yeah, the bench thing, it's not even attached to a bench. It's attached to Jun, right? The NPC. Oh, you mean the crafting them on? Yeah, I think that whole like crafting veiled mods and unlocking crafts, like we can forget about that whole thing because the crafting bench doesn't exist. I'm not saying it shouldn't, but just like that's a completely separate thing right now. But I really like this veiled thing. There's something there. We can definitely flesh it out, and this is the kind of thing at this stage we're just kind of trying to come up with cool ideas. So we're going to rewrite this. So drop a. Okay, so we're going to bullet point X. Makes it a bit clearer. Okay, base rares drop 100 times less. Ish. I need to put the little approximate symbol here. Lovely. Now, T 2 to 3 equivalent. So they're already powerful, more powerful. So you know they're not going to be like complete vendor trash. They at least have a chance of being good. You're not going to get a T, you know, a T1 life on it. Sorry. We need to go back to make T1s great again. I need to start that campaign. Make T1s great again. But yeah, we're going to... Oh, by the way, guys, for everyone that is here at the minute, tomorrow night, yeah, well, it's night time. Around this time tomorrow, 9 o'clock tomorrow, GMT, so an hour ago, wherever that is for you, we're doing a podcast. So Try is hosting a podcast with me, Dreamcore, and Gavrin, and we're going to be doing our kind of, you know, pre-GGG live predictions and just having a chat and a catch up and stuff. So yeah, be sure to you know, set a reminder for that and join us there. We're going to be talking about a lot of this kind of stuff, a bit of crafting, but I'm sure just like, you know, the whole game in general. So it should be fun. Yeah, please go back to T1. Anyway, my point being is base rares, you know, you're almost never going to get a terrible roll, which is great. I don't think there's like a problem with that inherently. And that should be kind of equivalent to your level, right? Like, or equivalent, obviously, as you go through the game. so that it's level appropriate. The item tier system definitely isn't working as intended at the moment. Yeah, it's like one of those things. It's like the tier, the rare tier system is such a good idea. It's just not quite working at the minute. But I think if you created 2 tiers, which is one is like the powerful base and reduce the numbers like this, so they are now T3 equivalent. Then not blessed, veiled rares. Let's just say,
An exile. Coins are as useful as teats on a bull.
Hey, T1 sub. Cheers, Evolution. Appreciate you, mate. How was the alert sound just then? Was it super loud still? Let me know, because I will continue to just dial it down if so. Yeah, the podcast's going to be wicked. Yeah, it's going to be really cool. So me try and Dream started doing, like, you know, the Still Sane podcast a little while back, and we just did it kind of informally whenever it made sense. And yeah, now like Gav's going to jump on as well, which is really fun. I absolutely loved the first Pod of Exile, like the the Mobalytics one that they did with who was it? Yeah, it was Sarog, Dream, Alcohol, and Try. That was really good. Okay, everything's balanced. Good. Sound is good. Still peaks out over you talking a bit, but otherwise unrecognized. Okay. That's fine. That's all good. Okay, we'll leave it there for a minute. So, guys, are we happy with... I can't spell at all. But I'm not going to do that thing where I just claim to be dyslexic, because we're in a culture of over self-labeling these days. Okay. Apparently everyone has ADHD these days, right? What's that joke? It's like, how do you know if you've got ADHD? Because your friend with ADHD told you, or something like that. Yeah, I'm so sorry, guys. Like, my typos are shocking, right? Like, they are shocking. And they will continue to be. Who was it who was taking the piss out of me? What create? Oh, it was Gazzy. Gazzy was watching one of my Warlock video on his stream, and he was like just ripping into me. He was like, "Aren't you English?" Because he's not English, right? Where is he, Swedish or something? And he was like, "How can I spell better than you?" I was like, "Because you had to learn." Okay, I learned by talking. Okay, so then we've got veiled rares. These drop 1 in 5 maps ish. No, maybe even less than that. Like 1 in 5 to 10 maps ish. Like, that can be figured out. One, or potentially, or rarely, 2 veiled mods on. An unveiler NPC in town. Okay, cool. I just think that's a really, like, just from a base level, I think that's cool. Change rare tier system. There we go. There's one kind of core suggestion. Now, I did have another thing. Oh, that was it. Yeah. Okay, so here's my other, like, core idea, and then I'm going to kind of just, like, I think from there we'll be able to freestyle it a bit and kind of open it up. Maybe this will inspire some other stuff. Okay, so where are we? Where are we? So, scouring orbs. Now, this is really going out there a little bit now, but this isn't right, but you can read this for yourselves. This was just like the random travel thought that I had and wrote down. So, if I was to try and tackle the crafting problem, what's the first, if we try and like get the low hanging fruit first and then build from there with more nuance, what's the biggest issue right now? I would say in PoE 2, having, played for a while, obviously the inaccessibility of any crafting, like omens, as people say, like omens don't exist. And omens only exist on the trade site. And essences, obviously, so making those more available and balancing their power accordingly, but essentially just giving us some tools. The other thing is obviously re-rolling. And this is like they've, the biggest re-rolling we have in the game now is through Chaos Orbs, which is, just identify, like basically just re-identifying the same item. Not quite, but it's just a one-arm bandit pull, right? Hey, Try, how you doing, mate? Welcome in, welcome in. I was just telling everyone about the pod tomorrow, to look forward to that. But yeah, it's working. The stream seems to be working. So we're multi-streaming as well. We're on YouTube and Twitch right now. Takahiro, welcome in, mate. Yes, we're addressing a wide variety of crafting things, and we have kind of gone over that. Yes, there's too many item drops for sure. So, but there's lots of elements to this that all obviously affect each other. With item drops, for example, it's like, okay, how do you drop less? Well, you need to then make them more valuable, so that it doesn't all get filtered. And there's then lots of different types of items that can drop, so you have to affect the way that they become more valuable individually. Like currency is, just easy to balance. Uniques are obviously easy to balance, but like rares and base types have their own thing. So we will get into it. We'll get into it. But yeah, so this scouring orb thing. So the idea is, so we've just, for those of you that have just come in, we've just come over an idea that's like, okay, we want to change rares. So that rare items basically drop at like a T2, T3 equivalent that are now. So that just becomes the base rare type. They only drop like, you drop like 1 to 2 rares per map. And then there's a whole new tier of rares that drop that are like the T5 equivalent kind of at the minute. That don't necessarily drop with T5 mods. Maybe they drop with like T4 kind of level mods. But they are veiled. They have veiled mods on them. And we basically bring back veiled mods so that you get some kind of like powerful item that has a good base level of tiers, but also has this like controllable built-in kind of mod choice when you unveil it. So that is obviously more of a drop only focused thing. You could add veiled orbs back in, but make them super rare, and that's for like really high-end crafting and stuff, and that's fine because that's how it works in PoE 1. Yeah. So now we're coming on to this like scouring orb idea. I actually don't think it should be necessarily a scouring orb, but bear with me. The preface I was giving there is like, okay, I think we need to add some way to re-roll items back. If we're going to make bases more powerful, and I think bases should become like more powerful, so you have to drop less of them. You don't want to lose that base every time you craft. You don't just want to like, identify with multiple steps, and then you've just got a 6-slotted, 3 exalted item that you're like, okay, cool. I just hit that with like 4 orbs and now I'm done. So re-rolling should be able to come back into the game. I think there should be lots of different ways to re-roll an item. That is really up for discussion, and like, you could go 50 different ways with that. But what if, to find like a happy medium here, what if every time you use a reroll currency, so let's say that was a scouring orb or I don't know, like some other orb, like that rerolls the suffixes or something, or whatever. We get. What if every time you do that, you increase the corruption on an item? So here I've called it integrity when I first kind of come up with the idea. So we'll rewrite this, but like, okay, so you gain any reroll currency. or reforge, you know, like any of this kind of, you can bring all this stuff back in now potentially, but any reroll or reforge, currency or reforge, adds a % of corruption to an item. So then the idea here is that every time you then use a reroll currency on that item, it checks the current corruption percentage, and then it rolls that to then say, does this item become corrupted, right? So this would be a big change to the game. This would be a really big change, but it's one of the ways that I can imagine from like a fundamentals point of view that you might be able to stop infinite re-rolling whilst adding some kind of like, you know, some ability to do it, limited ability. So the way that you would do that is like, okay, I've got this item, I've got this amazing base. Oh, I messed up I didn't get like lucky on the last part of this craft, or I want to push the item further. Okay, I'm going to scour it. Let's just say it's only scouring orbs at the beginning. I want to scour it back to white, right? So I've got this powerful base again. I'm going to go through the steps again. Okay, cool. I do that, and then it rolls like 20% corruption on the item. And now, the next time, maybe you get your first scour for free. Actually, no, screw that. There should always be a risk every time you do it. So you use it. It adds 20% corruption. There's a chance now that item becomes fully corrupted. It rolls like 1 of 5. You go through the process again. You want to scour it again. You're like, it's still not what I want. Cool. You do it again. Now it's a 40%, right? So now there's like a 2 in 5 chance that you're going to corrupt the item fully. And once the item's corrupted, it's corrupted, right? Like it's not usable again. And then I think to then bring back, you know, the beautiful corrupted mods, you know, that we have on items and stuff that we all love and is very PoE. I think when it becomes corrupted, it gains a mod, right? And so you can still have like, so this is kind of cool, I think, because you could lose, but then maybe win. Because by the point that you want to scour the item, you're already in a position where like, okay, maybe you bricked it or whatever, but you're like, okay, well, it was obviously good enough for you to carry on crafting. So maybe it was the last step that you got to where you were like, and you wanted to be greedy. You've still got an okay item. And then when it becomes corrupted, obviously it could roll with something really good. So you could kind of feel like you're losing, but then actually maybe you win, right? And then you would still have Varl orbs then for items that aren't corrupted, that are really powerful, that are perfect, that you want to still Varl, you know, which is really important to the Reddit community, obviously. You then can still Varl orb in, you can still take the chance and corrupt it. Okay, that's the outline of the system. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me where I'm like clearly not seeing something and going wrong and all that kind of thing. I'm gonna, as you think on that, I'm gonna catch up. I feel like they could always go back, but I will be bummed if they can't find a better solution than scours and ults. Yeah, so Circane, hopefully what I'm describing here is like a really, I think potentially a really good middle ground, which is like not infinite re-rolling, but not like pure one-arm bandit, one and done crafting. Takahiro. What do you think of the idea of looking for items, what really good rolls on stats you want, and you can dismantle those items for the ability to stick that roll on? Yeah, so Takahiro, I'm not sure if you've played Last Epoch, but if you haven't, that's kind of cool that you thought of this. But the way that their system works is a shards-based system, so you can break items down into their affixes, and then you can put those affixes on items. And PoE were actually looking at this. So GGG were looking at this for PoE 2. They actually had like a prototype of it in one of the pretty close to early access builds for the game. And they decided not to do it for some reason. So was it just that it wasn't ready and they're still going to go ahead with it? And essentially it'll be a very similar system to Last Epoch. I think that could be a little bit dangerous. Not because I don't think it would be good. I think it might work really well. But I think you're then creating something so similar to Last Epoch that if it's more limited than Last Epoch, people will be like, oh, it's just a worse version of it. And if it's exactly the same, then people will be like, it's just exactly the same. They copied it. I'm personally not against copying good ideas, but I think there are other ways to do it. So hopefully that answers that. Okay, Guitarholic's putting in a curveball. The crafting issue. Is it because PoE more than D2 or LE, your build is your gear? Most builds can't even function without all the gear in harmony, so having no determinism. Whereas in D2... so I think it's a point well made, yeah. I don't know, because I'd have to do like a really deep freaking analysis, I think, to work out what percentage of player power comes from gear relative to the other games. But just anecdotally from what you're saying and from what other people have said, I think there's definitely some truth to what you're saying. Which is why it's paramount that we, I think, have these discussions and really like try and provide this feedback, and also just be patient and like give them a chance to fix it, you know? Yeah, Sir Kane, I hope that was clear. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going for, is a percent chance to corrupt, yeah. I would like it more making scales with no downside. Yeah. I don't want the game to be LEified. I agree with you, C to the fourth. Like, I was sort of saying this earlier, like, I don't just want to try and, like, remake Last Epoch system with different names. You know, like, Exalted drops become Divine drops, and, you know. I think there's other ways to do it that are with it all kind of taking as much as possible of the PoE, existing PoE DNA, to further augmentation as possible. Yeah, exactly. Brittle. It's funny you say that, Maple, because that idea of it being brittle, like losing integrity, was like the core kind of thing. It was like, oh, you keep working on this thing, but you're kind of potentially adding cracks into it, you know, like reworking a bit of metal too much or something. Takahiro, well, if you haven't played Last Epoch, then I would highly advise checking it out. And their next update is going to be absolutely banger, I think. I have a very, very strong feeling it's going to be, like, take it up into essentially being on par with PoE. Maybe not in terms of, like, actual some of the skill-based stuff, but in terms of, like, the actual build craft and stuff, it's up there. No, so I played Last Epoch on launch, so about a year ago. So I have no concept of the game before that. Yeah, the only solution is to make it even better. Yeah, the live stream's going to be freaking incredible. What is increasing dislocation density? Yeah, that's some. You can teach me something here. I appreciate it. So yeah, what do we think to this kind of like chance for corruption system? I think it's really in the PoE DNA. Like, I think it's really cool. It's like a really cool way to, because then essentially what you're kind of doing is replacing forging, but you're not going down this like forging potential route where you're like, I don't know if anyone has Build-A-Bear in like other parts of the world, but in the UK we have this thing called Build-A-Bear. It's like you go into this teddy factory and you make your own like little teddy bear out of parts, and it's like then it feels really your own and that kind of thing. So like Last Epoch have like essentially a fully like deterministic, basically almost fully deterministic Build-A-Bear system, right? And I think it would be cool to kind of go the other way where it starts with RNG and then you kind of like work backwards from that, and you're like, right, how can I refine this? But every time you try and refine it or like change it, you know, drastically, you're like, oh shit, I might corrupt it. Or I think that being one of the key pillars or key verticals of the crafting system would be cool. So 20% corruption each time you use it. Hey, Emerson. Thanks for the follow, mate. Welcome in. Arcways. Oh, interesting. Oh, I didn't have my latest thing. Sorry, Arcways, welcome in, mate. To iterate on my last question, does scouring an item to white retain the veiled modifier? Or does that also get... Ah, cheers, Sashira. Yes. So this was your thing about the implicit stuff. Oh, I think it scours it. Yeah, I think it scours it. But I do understand. I'm not completely sold on that idea. I think it's an interesting question to say: are there certain implicits that can roll on items that are um, more powerful or something, right? That just inherently make that base item powerful. And so this is the thing: if you add this like percentage corruption system into the game, you can then start to make base types really fucking powerful. You can, because, and the kind of RNG element of base types, because you're deleting, you've got a sink for them. You're deleting them out of the economy over time. So you could, you like. So interestingly, so I see what you mean, Sashiro, because you could kind of say, well, what if there were like veiled base types that were essentially like synthesized bases, right? Like, let's take this to the extreme here and say, what if there were bases that could drop with like, powerful mods that just made that base like a synthesized level, mirror tier base. I mean, God, that's like, just in of itself, again, like, as much as I can here, I'm like, don't reinvent the wheel on this, right? Because it's just more work for them, for like people to get their heads around, for everything. So what if we just said like, bring synth bases back, but they wouldn't be called synthesized bases because it feels weird to bring that whole content theology back into the game. But you just like, just call them whatever. Maybe just call them synth bases for now. Synth bases come back. Because then it's like, oh crap. Problem with synth bases, they're so rare. It's like you would have to make this, but something like that. I like what you're getting at with that though. I think the veiled system could work separately to that. So veiled are like explicit modifiers, still. But this then becomes the question. So okay, so you've got actually this is how I want to phrase this so that I can remember when I actually come back to this when me and Lolcarl jump on a call. But it's like, how would I put this? Okay, you now delete bases of the economy, so we can now make bases more interesting / powerful. Okay. Oh my god. I think what's going on here is like my typing is just very rushed and bad. I send emails like that all the time. It's terrible. I'll just send like really janky, dodgy work emails that I haven't like proofread. Because I'm like, oh, you know what I mean. Lazy. Also very efficient though. Yeah, so synth bases have locked in implicits, which do not get rolled when using currency. I wonder if Uberak bosses should drop influenced items. Well, this is the cool thing, Adam Adapted. So, also, welcome in, mate. What you could do, instead of having, like, influence... Whoa, I wonder if that's a cool idea. That's kind of... Ooh, it's kind of... Interesting. Because if you think... Sorry, like, my mind's doing that thing where it's got about 50 things buzzing. But you've definitely sparked something off there because, okay, what if you didn't have like influences, right? But, because influences were there to kind of essentially like open up a new mod pool to an item. So if something was influenced, there would be a new mod pool option for that item. And I don't think we want to go like, I don't think the game as PoE 2 is like at that stage where you need additional mod pools. I think like working on the core things is. However, what if the synthesized implicit, so let's say an influenced implicit. Yeah, what if you called them influenced implicits, right? So what if when you kill a certain boss, there's a chance that that boss can like has its own implicit mod pool that can drop for that item base. So this is kind of the closest thing to incursion mods. And I actually, if any of you have like gone through the PhD dissertation that was my incursion rework, you will know how passionate I am about incursion and incursion mods. I think incursion mods are one of the most underappreciated and undercommunicated, unfortunately. Like they're too context heavy. Like most players will never understand that they were even in the game, to be honest. But this idea that you could get certain types of mods from certain rooms or certain architects in incursion was wicked. And I think you could make this system instead of like the problem with it was stuck in incursion, which was already a niche thing that most people didn't want to run. What if you opened that logic up to to every boss in the game, essentially, and you could even do it on a biome basis, where basically you can get implicits that are influenced by that boss that you're killing. So you can kind of target farm just instinctively by doing certain types of content. So let's just say, for example, you were killing Zesht, right? Zesht would have his own mod pool for every like item type, essentially, that was an implicit. So instead of it being a synthesized mod, it would be an influenced implicit mod. So, you know, I don't know, Zesht might have damage taken as fire on a chess piece or something, right? Like, or gain a random element, you know, on a weapon or something like that, right? I'm just kind of spitballing here, but cheers for the follow, Brown Meal. Welcome in, mate. No, we're talking implicits now. Yeah, so this is or maybe like you say, maybe it can roll on any base. So maybe it's not stuff that maybe that would simplify the mod pool a hell of a lot. It'd make it a lot more easy to understand and to implement. Would be like, okay, you can get +1 power charge from this type of boss or something like that. I just love the idea. Essentially, what we're trying to do now is like how to make bases matter. Let's say how to make bases matter or something, right? Because obviously the new system, like PoE2's current system, achieves that, where it's like, well, but it's just pure RNG. It's like, well, obviously I want a barrier staff for my like expert quarter staff, for example. You always want the highest base, right? But there's nothing else on it that really does anything. We can't get over quality. We're kind of just fixed. There's nothing like random in there that makes bases interesting. Even like the base roll range is kind of like, you know, you can affect. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Neth Star. Yeah, that's it. Because, you know, oh man, I think we're onto something with this. I think we're onto something with this. I love incursion. I think incursion would be the coolest thing to bring back. I'll be honest. I actually think the incursion design like video that I did is probably the video I'm most proud of. Yeah, I think so. Even though I think it's probably potentially one of the hardest watch. Like it was never for everyone. It was for like a very hardcore audience of mine. But I think Incursion's awesome. I think there's so much potential for it on the Atlas and like finding temples and yes, it's going to be wicked when they bring it back. Um, Thank you, Sashiro. I appreciate that, man, because they're like my two favorite things that I've probably done as well. I think the only other one that was like that was the butcher, like bringing the butcher into a butcher like character into PoE 2. That was one of my other favorites. Um, yeah, Maple, you've got to check it out, man. It's I mean it's a long watch. It's like nearly an hour long, so it's like a put it on in the background while you work kind of thing or something. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. So we want bases to matter, right? Obviously. How do you do that? There's roll range variability that is either unaffected, sorry, unchangeable, or it costs a lot. Like it's a very rare orb. Make blessed orbs very rare. Hey, Ignush. I'm going with Ignush. Cheers for the follow, mate. I think we've like doubled our follower count on this stream or something, which is super super cool. I don't even know if I've like set the right game on on my Twitch stream. Am I? Oh, I am streaming. Yeah, good. Good. I'm glad it's on PoE too. Cool. Um, yeah, exactly, Maple. Yeah, yeah. So biomes as well. So yeah. So imagine, yeah, like the Citadel of Iron. Any boss from the Citadel of Iron, any base type they drop, the implicit could be changed to, you know, +1 power charge. Any Citadel of Copper could be +1 X or whatever. Maybe grassland biomes can affect it in this way or that way, right? Like increased poison damage or, like whatever. Chaos damage. God, I've been playing too much last Epoch. The thing, okay, so like where my thoughts with this are kind of going is like, is it too rigid a system? So I think one potential side effect you have to look out for is like, does this create a thing where people are like, well, I only play because the meta is +1 power charge, because everyone's stacking power charges, for some reason. Then I'm only gonna like beeline for this biome or something. Which again, I think we've got to be very careful. I don't think it's very much a personal opinion. I don't think they should be balancing around trade all the time. I don't think they should be like considering trade as the one way to balance because I would personally, this is very much again my opinion, I would personally love it if the game was more SSF friendly. Like right now, PoE 2 I think is pain. I was hoping to play SSF, but it's just painfully bad. From what I've heard, from my observations of playing trade, I tried not to trade for as long as possible, and then I got to like T2 maps. I was like, how can I not? Similar to Conqueror influence bases. Similar to Conqueror influence bases. Carry on. Go on. Go on. The question is, there's obviously an opportunity cost here because you're deleting, you are deleting a mod. Aren't you? You're deleting the implicit. So you don't want a situation where we're like, take rings for example. You don't want a situation where we're like getting rid of stuff that you need all the time, all the time. But we're talking about bases here. We're talking about bases. So you'd want them to be fairly rare because you don't want to create more loot on the ground. So you want it to be like, oh, when an influence base drops, you always want to find out what it is, right? Like, is the idea. Just like when a synth base drops. but you want it to be rare enough where you're like, and the mod pool to be small enough that it's like usually going to be something good. I think the predictability of it being good, because currently there's just way too many things in the game where you're like, hey, that dropped like a T5, and then you pick it up and it's just a load of useless stats that you don't care about. Yeah, I think that's what like last Epoch have done really well. Obviously, they've like kind of nailed this like solo self-found thing. Okay, no, Guitarholic, go ahead, man. I'm looking for like I'm entertaining any idea, but the goal is to try and make it as much PoE as possible, right? With that new powerful idea. Sometimes that's possible, sometimes it's not. But so hit me and I'll do my best to like if I think it solves a problem, I'll try and translate it into the broad scheme that we're working on. Well, we've added a few vectors to rare ground loot, drop location, by way of implicit rolling, item potential, by way of veiled affixes, and item adaptability, adding a corruption range modifiability range. Yeah. Yeah, so I love the idea of like gaining crafts at the end of like certain content, but I think that needs to be very League and item slot specific. Whereas at the minute we're trying to look at like the core crafting and like ground loot kind of drop pool. Like the bestiary video that I put out a few days ago. It was like, okay, let's focus on belts and like how you craft belts, you know, and you add this trophy to them and it all does all this stuff. Okay, Guitaraholic, what you got for me? What if white items had the implicit mod and the eye level increased the range roll and some sort of item capability value, but the more mods you put on the item, the more it has to dilute the roll ranges of the mods on the item. So having a full mod item might actually give you right there. Right there. I'm gonna bring this up. So having a 4 mod item might actually give you better mods than a 6 mod item. Deciding if you want to go all the way or not. This is wild because I'm struggling to even get my head around it. Or a magic item with 2 mods is actually in-game viable because it's something farmed in level 90 zones, so it had only 2 mods but high mod roll ranges. If I turn it rare, it dilutes them. Yeah, okay, interesting. Yeah. So I've actually heard this like kind of idea, if I'm understanding you right. I've heard this idea before of like like it's kind of like the adorned is it's like adorned logic, right? But where did I hear this? What game was it in where magic mods could roll much higher than rare mods? Please tell me like what? Oh, it's the D2. Oh, it was D2. It was D2. Thank you for that. I was like, oh, they did it in D4 as well, did they? Well, that didn't work out well. I was before it launched. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that idea, I think, isn't a bad idea, and that's kind of like what you're talking about. Do you know what's the funny thing, Guitar, is like if you went along with that, you could actually, if you did go along with that system, say I was making a whole new game and I went with that system, I would just get rid of white magic and rare altogether. Like I would look at that. There's basically no point to have item tiering at that point, because what you would do is just fundamentally establish in the player's understanding and the game's logic that more mods equals less power per mod, and then it's just like you don't need to have rarity of items then. Maybe you have uniques as like this whole other thing that have unique mods on them, right? Like in terms of base items, like core items, you would just go, you can have 6 mods top, 6 mods max, If you want one mod on it, it's like a helical ring, or it's like the high spaces in PoE 1 or simplex amulet or something. You're like, cool. If you want one really strong stat, like there it is. Yeah, like Krathen's saying there, if you limit it to if you limit it to certain base types, then you've got the heist system, right? In PoE 1. Which is cool. Like I think people love that exists. Well, no, rarity would then apply to the item adaptability and the corruption range if we take the current options. Yeah, so if you try and integrate into like that idea into the current system, like, and the way that orbs work and take you up the rarity systems, then like, yeah, it's just not quite compatible. You have to do loads of stuff. It's just an interesting thing to like take that idea in a vacuum and say, oh yeah, you could kind of, if you were really going to commit to something like that, you could just get rid of the idea of like normal magic rare, which I actually think could be a really interesting argument. Like, when's the last time you played an RPG game that didn't have, white items, blue magic items, gold rare items? Like, it's become this like hyper normalized thing that doesn't necessarily need to be that way, which I think is really interesting. However, I don't think that's necessarily gonna be very viable as like a as a feedback suggestion for PoE 2. I really like the idea. They could be higher or better depending on the base type of the item. Oh, I'm really sure. I'm not sure I 100% follow what you guys are on then. This is really hard to express without like visual cues and just like laying it all out. Rarity would mean then apply the item. The problem with like the thing with like adaptability, this idea of like item adaptability, right, is what I don't like necessarily like about it is you're adding like another thing into, unless that's just like a behind the scenes system, I'm not quite picking that up. But like if you had a thing that was like, hey, here's your role ranges, and as you add more, it becomes like really confusing, especially if you try and like blend that into the current system. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I think you're so right, Guitar. Like, I think one of the biggest bits of feedback that I've seen within the community and within like a lot of creators talking about and stuff is that I think the biggest challenge right now is a lot of people don't really know what PoE 2 is trying to be. And this is very much a PoE 1 player problem, I think. I think a lot of people who are just new to the franchise, like, hey, here's this cool game, like Wicked. It's got these orbs, and oh, I wish I could have a bit more of this, and that will just evolve over time. Whereas we're seeing it as like through a very like PoE 1 pilled mindset. And so we're really struggling to get our head around like seeing the same problems that we've seen already been solved in PoE 1. I think it's fine. I think it's actually like jarring people. Like some people are having quite emotional responses to it. And I must admit, I've been struggling myself, which is why I want to. That's why like I love making this content and like doing these live streams and stuff, because I actually really care, and I'm really trying to understand from like a design principle sort of point of view, so that if it does turn out, I'm sure they have a very good vision, that they just maybe it would be good for them to communicate. If it does turn out that they don't, then at least we can offer some suggestions. Because I think it's completely fair as well to say, like, hey, they wanted to try something new. Like, they're allowed to try something new and not get it right the first time. And this is something that I find a little bit, I see it in the comments, of my videos and stuff. Some people are just, like, really harsh critics. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think maybe people are a bit jaded about gaming and, like, the gaming industry as a whole at the minute. But I can't understand how people get to that level of, like, harshness where I'm like, can you not, in order to make something interesting and creative, you have to be willing to take risks, right? And they don't always pay off by definition. So anyway, me bloody white knighting over here. I'll stop. What I mean with adaptability is you're scouring orbs header. Any reroll currency adds a percent of corruption. So you're on about the corruption percentage thing. Yeah. I really don't want to. Okay, I don't want to get this like live stream into a debate about the what I will call the PoE 1.5 versus PoE 2 debate. You know, like, is PoE 2 just going to be PoE 1 with better graphics? Or is PoE 2 trying to like actually deliver on these like very different philosophical ideas of like moment to moment, slower moment to moment experience, or slower, like more thoughtful moment to moment experience and stuff? We'll get into that whole other time. I think that debate's kind of just like one of those false debates because you're not really discussing anything. You're just trying to like, we won't know until they express it to us. And I think that's a legitimate position to have, is we just don't know at the minute. I wish they'd tell us more. Cool, I agree. We'll find out. Right. It's super weird. First thing they have to decide on the pace of the game. I wish I'd be okay if they tried something for a season then fucked out. Yeah. So Shiro, the thing is, what I'm thinking is that you don't have a different term for this, like with the reforge and, you know, like let's call it reforging, and then I can just put like scouring orb as an option, right? I think you just keep with the term corruption, and you just say like it's like, because I had the term integrity before, like you're damaging the integrity of the item, and eventually it will become corrupted, right? I think you just add corruption to the item as like a, again, my grasp of English is unfortunately not as academic as I'd like to be, but like that's the term you're using, right? It's like the item is gaining corruption, so it has 20% corruption, 40% corruption, or whatever, and then it becomes corrupted, which is the fixed state. Once it becomes corrupted, just like it is in the game now. So yeah, that's the idea. It's like you're not gaining, like, you're not reducing the integrity or the forging potential or the adaptability or whatever. You are adding corruption to the item. And I like that because it's an additive state of like darkness. You know, like we are so used to that idea within fantasy and film tropes, you know, the darkness is grabbing hold of something. And so every time you do it, it's like, ooh, you're stepping closer towards Satan's lair. And then your item becomes bricked and fully corrupted. And then you're like, oh. And then you post it on Reddit. Yeah, okay. So you gain 20% corruption every time you do it. So I think you can scour back. So what I want to do now is like, okay, what are these reforge options? Let's actually... I'm going to put these as like the principles. Each time you use a roll, it adds any reroll currency of reforge adds a percent of corruption to an item. This value is then rolled and just rolled to see if item becomes fully corrupted. So that would be, I think we'd have to really like work on the wording there a little bit because it wouldn't be super clear. You would then, as a player, just think, oh, well, I've only got 20% corruption, so how could it possibly become corrupted? Because it's only when it gets to 100% that it becomes corrupted, right? Like, I know the wording there is a little, you'd have to, like, articulate that a bit better. But we'll figure that out. I just don't want to add like additional terms if not necessary. Purpose to open space for more valuable bases, meaning yeah, okay, so yeah. Yeah, so we've already got that up here. That adds space for bases. So now what are the actual currencies? So let's just like lay out, you know, like a couple of why is that? So obviously we want scours, right? Scouring orbs. Like scouring orbs taking it back to white. That's obviously like, I think just like, you could just launch this system just with scouring orbs, I think. And you'd be like, cool. Ex Delirious. Yeah, it's a weird concept. It's a weird concept, I think, to like get this idea across that you're essentially, the more corruption you have, the higher the chance you every time you use one of these orbs to actually corrupt the item. So like, you know, you could call it tainted, or you're tainting the item, you know, whatever. Taint, just I think for our American friends is not is not like the word of choice, I don't think. Alamander, hello mate, welcome in. Mike, how you doing? The beast tentacles spreading more. They could change the art. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think like as you add corruption to an item, it adds like a little number in the bottom corner or something. There's like a red hue and it gets redder and redder or whatever. Yeah. Exactly. 50% tainted. The only thing taint is just, isn't a taint like the bit like your gooch? Isn't that, is that right? I don't know. What is a taint? There's like a, isn't there like a slang term for? Okay, so Alamander, you've said scouring orbs are not coming to PoE 2, sadly. So this is kind of, I guess, exploring an idea to make an argument for it, but they are not the same as scouring orbs in PoE 1, to be clear. So yeah, that's the argument, I guess. You could even say that scouring orbs only take it back to magic. Now that would be an interesting idea, because have you guys seen the theory that alteration orbs are coming back? Jorgen did a video on it. I know some people have shared it on Reddit or whatever, right? But like, because they were like redacted from one of the videos, or there was a blue orb that was redacted from one of the videos. So I haven't made a video about it because I was like, oh, I don't really want to like, if they really didn't, if they went through that effort to pull it, I don't really want to like dive into it, you know, and be like, oh, here's their dirty laundry. So yeah. It could be fake. It could be fake. You know, sure, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's the video. Yeah. So the idea is they pulled, they pulled a video when they released the map stash, the video that had the map stash update in it. There was there was an orb in there apparently. This was in the original post. We have to just, if we're going with that this was true, and someone didn't Photoshop this, then they had a version of that video that they replaced, because in the first version of the video, good night, sir. They had a first version of the video that had 3 blue orbs in it, and there was one that didn't exist in the game. So people are saying, oh, maybe that's an alteration, and they're bringing the alterations in, which I think would kind of be interesting. Because the thing is, if you gated the rarity of them, say they were as rare as Exalted Orbs, right? Just as an example, I'm not saying this is, I think this is the way to do it or whatever. And they only re-rolled 1 mod, let's say. That isn't necessarily the worst thing, because you're instantly halving. I think you'd have to do the math on it, because it probably doesn't work out this way. But in theory, you're halving the number of clicks, right? Because you get 1 mod you want and 1 mod you didn't. So you're like, oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna, you know, just try and spam this and get rid of the mod I didn't want, right? 50% of the time. I don't think actually no, I don't think that would make a ton of difference because the chance of then getting another mod that you do want would be super low, right? Someone who's a statistician would have to get into that. But yeah, how could they change alteration orbs? Because then you're just if they don't do it any other way, they are just re-adding like infinite re-rolling of magic items back in, and that could work, right? Um, like it's not a bad idea to then say, okay, we're allowing infinite re-rolling only up to this level. The problem is we're then back to, you know, every crafting project is essentially, hey, here's 2,000 alteration orbs. So it's hard to imagine that they would do it in the same way. I think they've got to do it some other way. Um, yeah. Yeah, the freaking reforge bench or whatever it is, that thing needs some work or whatever for sure. Um, crafting bench that allows me to spend 3,000 orbs to craft plus one. Exactly right. So like yeah, then it's like what you're saying, bystander, is why not just do it like chromatics or jewelers in the crafting bench in PoE 1? Just be like, cool, the average is this, we're going to charge you a surplus of this to just guarantee this mod. And then you're getting into like basically deterministic mod crafting hidden behind price, which I think kind of then that to me just starts to feel icky. That starts to feel like, ugh, what are we doing here? Buying, like, so then only rich people can buy mods or something. I don't know. I don't think that's the fun of what crafting should be, you know? Um, and I know you could argue that all crafting is just an abstraction of get this thing with enough money, but I don't care about like mirror tier crafting here, right? We're not talking about the 0.001% of players. We're talking about like 50% of players' experience, 80% of players' experience. Like you want crafting to feel fun. Um, exactly. Yeah. See the fourth, like you're saying, like you can make a total like not a totalitarian. It's the wrong word. We've been watching too much news. Um, you can make a fundamental argument here that that is the case, like that you are always buying chance essentially. But again, that's not the average player's experience of it. That's the thing that we should be designing for, is an average player's experience, how they would actually integrate, like interact with the system. So yeah, I don't know the alteration orb thing. I don't know what's going on there. But I think at this stage, I think you could just say like with this reforging thing, coming back to like what we're talking about, um, you could just stick with scouring orbs. Because the one thing I was thinking is like, what was the orb? Was it sacred orbs that allowed you to imprint? Manuel's coming in and saying that it's definitely true. Definitely true. Hmm. Yeah, I don't think annulls are bad either. Like annulment's great. Eternal orb is imprint, right? Yeah, okay, so like with this system, the most obvious second option that comes to me is something like an eternal orb. Hear me out. Because what if oh, okay, this is a weird one. Okay, I'm just gonna speak my mind. I'm not sure if this is the right thing or not. What if you had an eternal orb, but it creates it's like a guarantees corruption or something if you mess it up. So it's like a one time so it adds like 100% corruption once you activate the imprint or like sorry once you or it adds oh I don't know there's something that I'm trying to express, but I'm struggling to express it. Um, you. So essentially, we could vary this corruption, this taint. I can't use that word seriously. Taint. This taint percentage based on the power of the crafting orb. The original thing that to connect the dots for you guys here, the original thing that I was thinking was, what if you could turn something back to its magic state? So say you had an item, you know, that was like, I do have some items here somewhere. Where is it? Say you had an item that was, you know, magic, and it had, you know, like these two mods on it. You could then turn, and you went ahead and then you crafted, like, okay, cool, I've crafted all this on it, I want to go back. Then you could turn it back to the same situation where it had just those two mods. So it's kind of like an imprint, but just for magic items. So it's not so you can't imprint rare items. Tainted currency is already in PoE 1. I know, it's like... no, it's not a Varl orb. It's like taint is like... I don't want to use taint. We're going to use corruption. You can gain levels of corruption. This whole idea is like centered around this concept that I'm going to have to find a way to better articulate. But it's like you gain corruption every time you re-roll an item. And it increases the amount of corruption on that item. And then every time you use one of these reforged currencies, they would, which would all be like Varl themed, right? They won't be a Varl orb, but they have a chance to corrupt the item fully, locking it. So that you're basically building risk into an item. It's like an integrity system. GubDM, cheers for the follow, mate. Welcome in. Depravity. Depravity is so brutal. Well, we call it like how sketchy an item's become. Oh, wicked. Cheers, Gub. Thanks, mate. I'm really glad you enjoyed the video. Bed. Okay, can you see this? No. Would it always be a flat percent, or would you make it variable range of corrupting? So this is the interesting thing. Yeah, you could make it variable range. So you could have kind of like the way forging. This is kind of like forging potential in reverse for anyone who plays Last Epoch, but it's not quite the same, and it's much more PoE themed, obviously, because it's around corruption, and it works fundamentally differently. But yeah, the idea, you could have something where you say, okay, every time you use a scouring orb to like bring an item back to base, it has 1 to 30% corruption. It adds to it. You could do that. The problem is, yeah, if you start saying like anything else, like defiled, tainted, I don't know, whatever, it starts to like feel like it's not Varl themed or something, you know? Corruption percentage. I think players would get used to that. Just imagine you're a player that's new to the game, and they're like, right, we're reworking how we do items, and we're introducing this new system or whatever to existing players. But you're just a player that's like new to this. You're gonna be like, oh yeah, this item's got, oh careful, that item's got 20%, 65% corruption on it. If you roll that again, it might become corrupted. I'm like, yeah, those two terms seem distinct to me. Corruption versus corrupted. Like, one is a variable of a quality, and the other is a state. Because anytime you use something else, like, yeah, polluted, brittle, like, it starts to feel something else. Like, and then these are all other terms that we could be using, elsewhere, like fractured, like you're saying and stuff. I think it would make sense to people. Like, corruption is different. Corruption is a variable value, and corrupted is a final fixed state. I think, like, I do think that I appreciate you, like, disagreeing with me and stress testing this a bit, but it's just making sense in my head. And I think if I expressed it that way as well, I'm gonna actually like write that down for when I corruption. You know, because then say like for example you had 100% corruption on an item, that would mean that, but it wasn't corrupted. That would mean that, or like, yeah, that would mean that if you use one of these currencies, it will guarantee that it becomes corrupted. That's where it starts to get really probably the closest to feeling weird in my mind, actually, because you're like, well, if something's 100% has 100% corruption, or actually no, you could just, oh, that's fine actually. Yeah, I just thought about that. You could just put that into the system, especially if you had variable roll ranges. You could just say, oh, if it ever hits 100%, it guarantees it's corrupted. Yeah, that's fine. I like that. Yeah. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. What in darnation? What in darnation? Miss Kirak. Someone on a podcast said they miss Kirak the other day, and I was like, I actually get that sentiment. I do miss Kirak. Kirak was like home, you know? It's like you come back and he's there. Like, he was always my sale. He was always my vendor. Yeah, when it reaches 100%, it has to come corrupted. I think if you add variable ranges in, that's actually, yeah. Corruption percent added each time you use it. Yeah, I think that's fine. Okay. And then added 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 each time you use it. This value is then rolled to see if it becomes fully corrupted. And then I just put, yeah, if it ever hits 100%, it becomes corrupted immediately. That's cool, yeah, because then it's like another little detail to the system that feels higher risk the further you get into it, which ups the stakes. That's kind of good. I like that. Feels good in theory, of course. Cool. And then, so we've got scouring orbs. Do we want to add any other orb, right? Like, do we want to be like, okay, reset something to base, you know, to reset something to, I don't think we do. I think if you I think if you want to bring an item back, it adds corruption to it. It's as simple as that. You could add other things like, you know, for example, you could then bring back the old Chaos Orb, but not as Chaos Orb. You could bring it back as like a Tainted Chaos, right? So then Tainted currency could come back, like, you know, like you could have like this Scouring Orb could be called a Tainted Orb or something, right? Like, or you know, a Tainted Chaos Orb would re-roll all of the mods on an item. And especially because, you know, we're going to be going into Beyond in like Act 6. And obviously everything is going to be actually Beyond themed, obviously. Right? Like, you know, clearly we're going into Beyond, we're going to go into Hell, and we're going to find out that like that's where like the seed of the beast came from, and we're going to destroy it. Like, because obviously that's how that's going to work. Not because I want us to go into hell and like do what D4 never did, you know, properly or anything like that, or because I love Beyond. Honestly, I wouldn't add Scouring Orbs back to the game. Okay, Pancon Lamu, help me out here and tell me why this system is bad, because I'm so keen to be like challenged on any of these ideas, because I don't really care if we delete something or not. I just want to try and find a really good system. So if you have a better idea, please convince me. We have too many orbs already, just have exalts to add stats. The problem, Takahiro, is that I'm not sure if you've heard this idea, but it's like basically if you only if the only way to craft items is with exalted orbs, you just have identifying with extra steps. I can't remember who said that, but it's like so heavily quoted now. You're basically just like, the principle is that you just have a 6 item slot that's gated behind exalted orbs. There's no determinism, and it's just bad. I think we need more determinism. I want Scourge to become mainstream endgame. Change my mind. Yes, Sashiro. I'm actually so here for it, dude. I'm so here for like a Beyond Scourge themed thing. Like, I really want that to be the end game of PoE 2 as well. Like, I want Act 6 to basically be like we have to go into hell to defeat the beast or the seed of the beast, you know, like the seed of corruption. And that is beyond. And somehow like the lore is like it's all tied into like this, it comes from this place, you know. That the gods, you know, can, I don't know, be destroyed in the beyond or whatever, and that's why like the beast destroys their powers or whatever. Where were we? Do scouring orbs drop from any content? Yeah, I think that's the way it would work. Yeah, scouring orbs would just drop from any content. Maybe scouring orbs only drop from like, you know, corrupted. If we're making it kind of like Val themed, no, it wouldn't be Val themed, would it? But yeah, I don't know. Doesn't really matter where it comes from. I don't think at this point. Yeah, Takahiro. The only thing is, I think if you, I'm doing my very best. I really agree with you that I think the most simplified, what is it like? Is it Occam's razor or something? But it's like, you know, the best systems are often the most elegant systems are the simplest. Like, how can you achieve as much fun in this case as a game with as much simplicity as possible? That is definitely the goal. Okay. Pankalon, in answer to my question, why are they bad? You said it's not that it is bad, but a lot of the crafting system revolves around the existence of scourings, which means they can't have any ideas to the game because chaos or scourings trivialize it. Yes. So Pankalon, I think there's some important context that you've missed here, that we're basically saying that you can't infinitely re-roll items with scours or chaos. We're saying that essentially every time you do it, we're adding a limited number of re-rolls basically. That there is a chance-based system that you'll destroy the item in theory or corrupt it, or brick it, as we should say. So it's like a limited. It's not like they were in PoE 1. Because so the reason we want to do this as well, to make it broad, like the broader design intention here, is that we want to make bases more impactful. We want to make item bases matter more. But if you're going to make item bases matter, you need to be able to delete items out of the economy. So because the more power you add into these item bases, the more you can't allow them to be infinitely re-rolled like in PoE 1. The problem is, I think in PoE 2 they've gone too far the other way, which is that they've tried to make drops matter and item bases really matter, but it's so unflexible that it just feels like you have no power over like the item at all, and you have no second chances or anything to try and like actually change the item. Now I know they do have the Chaos Orb and they have omens and stuff, but obviously they don't super exist for most players. The omen stuff at least. Nethstar, to be fair, a Null Orb and Chaos Orb feel like two sides of the same coin. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You're right, like they are kind of the same, just with an extra step. It's funny because when the first Chaos rework came out, like I really like the idea of it in principle. I just don't think maybe it's got the supporting systems around it. And I think it's important as well to recognize there's like no perfect way to do any of this. There's not like some secret hidden perfect formula. It's very much like a taste thing that the player base will adapt to. Gubhub. I kind of agree that an orb to take items back to white shouldn't exist because of the currency exchange existing. Honestly, I could see a scouring idol or pool of scouring at the end of some piece of content. Scour whatever you want at the end, but not a currency. That is a cool thought. That is a very interesting thought. That is a very interesting thought. Yeah, so I wonder if, like, you know, corruption altars existed in certain content that allowed you to scale. The thing is, if you don't make it accessible enough... God, this is a big system. I'm just like, you know, sometimes the more you learn about something, the more you realize you don't know. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. This is one of those kind of fractal things, or like the more we get into this, the more you realize everything's connected and you have to kind of change everything. But it's so fun to do because of that. Like, yes, it would be cool to hide the content in content or something, but do you know what? Okay, this would be my immediate response to that. Would be, you want to offer this to all the players. The point of this is to make the average crafting experience better. So I would be looking for a slightly different solution behind content gating. I would be like, yeah, you get to do this as much as you want. Remember, it's already got an inbuilt sync because you're potentially destroying the item when you do it. So you don't have to worry tons about, like, rich people can infinitely reroll because it's built into the core item system, right? What I think could be really cool about content gating is, in Incursion, obviously we have double corruption altars, right? It would be really cool if you could use that altar also to scour an item without adding corruption to it. That is the sort of thing that I think would be really cool and really powerful. So, you know, let's say it costs a divine orb or whatever to get a double corruption altar in the game, then equally it might be worth that to re-roll an item. You know, like, you are then adding infinite re-rolling. If you do that, you're adding infinite re-rolling into the game. But it would be so expensive because of the content that you would gate it behind, essentially the amount of time to invest to get those temples or, you know, whatever, that it would be like for like mirror tier crafting stuff that you would ever want to go through that process. And then at that point, I'm like, I don't see a problem with it being in the game. Because I'm like, well, yeah, I think it's cool that there's people that do mirror tier crafting and stuff. And it would the thing is, it would kind of force you to do that at some point. If you had like a mirror tier thing and you'd already like re-rolled it a certain number of times, it would actually potentially bring the ceiling down. Could be quite an equalizing thing. God, sometimes it's so hard to imagine the effect of this stuff. I can see why it takes some years to come up with stuff. Oh my God, the chat is kicking off. I'm loving it. Yeah, because they want to move away from... yeah, I know what you mean. They want to move away from like selling content. But the thing is, you could sell temples anyway. So like, you can sell temples. That's why I think like going towards like a corruption altar variant would be cool, because you can already sell those in the economy. Omens are ridiculously overpriced. I think it'd be fine crafting system, but they need to be. Yeah, so yeah, that's one thing, isn't it? All of this might just be solved by freaking changing the how close omens are. I think what's happened here, though, we're getting very caught up on this like scouring orb thing, whereas actually the real thing is like more just this, how we do it is like up for debate, and that I think would be a much deeper topic to like figure out clearly. But this reforging thing is the main thing. this idea of adding corruption. So because then that allows us to make interesting bases. And I think this base is like influenced. We haven't even written this idea down. I think it's such a good idea. It's like influenced, implicit item mods. They come from specific bosses, biomes, etc. So if any of you weren't here for this is like such a freaking cool idea. It's like, okay, how do you make item bases more interesting? What are the best item bases in PoE 1? Synthesis bases. They're super rare. They're like totally freaking broken to a degree. But some of them, when you can get like 3 or 4 freaking synth mods on a item base. But if we like slightly lowered the power of the mod pool, made them more widely available as a result, and then you could just like drop these from like, so items could drop with these implicit replaced, these like influenced implicits. Implicit. That looks wrong. Implicate? I've spelled implicate. Oh my god. Yeah, you can get these like super powerful implicits. And they're themed around the enemies that you get them from. That's the coolest thing I think about this. I think that's like, I love it when something is like, has that like diegetic quality, or it feels more physicalized and realized in the world. Implicit, thank you guys, I appreciate it. Jordan jumping in. Jordan, I haven't seen you say anything in the chat, but you were like, don't worry, I've got you. I've got you on the spell check. Appreciate it. What about an altar that scour fractures an item once? Scour fractures an item once. Yeah. So you can like re-roll an item once. Yeah, that's an option. That's an option. I think like that would be. I don't know. You're kind of getting into, because the problem is with like in PoE 1, with enough money, you can deterministically mirror tier craft, right? In PoE 2, I don't even know. Do you know what? That's so funny that I don't even know what omens can do, because I just haven't interacted with them, and I don't really particularly look at like mirror tier crafting content. That's hilarious. Yes, exactly, Sashiro. Like stuff like that is, I think, it's all good, Jordan. I appreciate it. Yeah, like Zesht. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to put this like chat over here so that you guys can see what each other are saying. Yeah, I'll find a way to do this as like an overlay or something at some point. Zesht implicit could be things like, you know, actually I really like that. Oh no, because now it's not gonna. It's alright. All we need to do is bring that there. Okay, and then Omen crafting is strong and potentially able to match PoE 1 crafting. However, its limited nature makes it unavailable. Yeah, exactly. It's just not really an option for most of us as a crafting system. Oh my god, I can't even. I will have to look at these off stream. I can't go through all of these right now. It'll do my Swede in. Yeah, so you can basically deterministically craft stuff with these, pretty much. Just super expensive. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know how I feel about it. This influence thing that I think is really cool. Let's put down examples. Yeah, let's just come up with some examples, guys. So Zesht is percent elemental damage del as chaos. To chaos. And he could also have like, because I think it'd be cool to have like multiple of these pools, right? Like you want like probably 4 from each boss or each, you know, like big boss especially. So you could have like another one would be like center elemental damage taken and converted. Or you could do elemental damage gained as. That could be. I mean, that's powerful though. That's like a more multi. Yeah, no. Cause the thing is, if you make these too powerful, they become necessary, don't they? They become min-maxy. I think converted, because then it's more horizontal than vertical power. I don't think most players even reach pinnacle content. I guess that's fair. Yeah, true. That's a good point. That's a good argument. Okay, we're gonna do gained then. For the pinnacle stuff, it can be more powerful. You're right. Gained as. Let's do another one. What's like another example? What if there were multiple types of corruption and when they are added to 100%, your item couldn't be altered anymore? But then you could explore mods and stuff that procced off of different corruption levels. That's kind of a cool idea. I think you could definitely, if you did have this percent corruption system, you could definitely have things that were like, yeah, like you could create a unique item, which essentially is a set, and it scales or you gain additional, it unlocks additional affixes based on the percentage of corruption additively across all your gear slots or something like that, right? There's things like that already, right? Where like what is it when you use a Varl orb? What are those gloves that you can Varl and keep Varling? Like they're like a Templar themed name or something. Zalmarath. Who's Zalmarath? Oh, the Colossus, yeah. Yeah, and this is the thing, because then what this does as well, this influence boss like system based on bosses. One, it leans into the best thing about PoE 2, which is bosses, like in my opinion. Like the hands down thing that everyone agrees is just a massive step up for the better, right? Everyone loves, yeah, everyone freaking loves the bosses. So it emboldens them, and it adds something unique to all like the end game versions of the bosses. So not only are they, you know, when you get to end game, you're like, oh sweet, I can now start getting these influenced implicits. Hands of the High Templar. Thank you, Sashiro. Veiled influenced corruption. What? What? Zalmarath the Colossus. Yeah, let's go with that. Oh my god, guys, I can't wait to show you this freaking Colosseum idea that we've got. I know I've been talking about it for ages, but I actually freaking love it. Do you know what, actually? I'll show you something. I'll show you something that, like, I'm not sure, after I make this video, I might want to change. But I'll show you, like, what I think would be a cool system. This is a complete tangent, guys, okay? Okay, so. Yeah, this isn't even a sneak peek. This is like freaking spoilers, okay? This is big. Ignore the tags at the top here. Okay, so actually, I think it's just weapons. Oh, do you know what? I need to check if this, because I've updated this so many times. Okay, I'll tell you what, forget about the Colosseum crafting stuff, because that's like a slightly different thing, which needs more context. I want to talk about this idea of fabled items, right? And someone mentioned it earlier. Who was it? Who was talking about? It was Maple. Who was talking about Crucible, right? I loved Crucible trees. I thought Crucible was a terrible league expansion, but it was. I thought Crucible trees were a really cool idea. The problem with them was they added like so much complexity, and there was like RNG. There was loads of RNG involved, right? And obviously with PoE 2, they're like, it would be really cool to add in like item-specific crafting.
Coins are as useful as teats on a bull.
Hey, Gub, thank you so much, mate, for the prime. Appreciate you. Okay, so I'm maybe the fabled item systems inspired you to sub. I appreciate it. Yeah, exactly. Too min-maxy, too just like, I don't know. There was like so much that was RNG gated to make such a min-max system. Like, it made it problematic. But it was really good for like a temporary power thing. Anyway, one of my favorite things is that they were like, okay, we're going to add more item-specific slot crafting, right? And so I had this whole content system of like Colosseum, which I will like present one day. But it's basically like a boss gauntlet kind of thing. It's like bossing. It's like a super bossing focused system where you go and fight bosses and you can change all this stuff. And there's some trap element in there, which is kind of fun and all this stuff. Anyway, I was like, what would be a really cool system from this? And I think it would be cool to add in something called fabled items. So these are like high item level bases. As you craft them, you can basically spend this reward to turn them into like a fabled item. And this is a whole new like item class, right? And this would only work on rares, I think. And you can basically like, once you make something a fabled item, you can rename it. So like it would have become like your sword, like, or your character name or something like that, right? In the thing. So it's like kind of bound to you. And I just really love this idea of a system. Like the UI would change here, and then it would show you like there's 5 tiers of like there's essentially 5 tiers of passive upgrades that you can make to this item. So it would look kind of like this. So it's kind of inspired by the Crucible system, obviously. But the idea being that you make an item fabled, and then the more you use that item, the more experience you gain with that item, and you go up through the tiers as you gain experience with it. And so then basically as you go through, you can choose what notables you want to add to it. So you don't get a fixed skill tree. You basically just get, axes would have a series of options at each tier, and you get to just select it. And if you want to like reallocate that, there's just a cost to these these ingots. You'd spend these Colosseum ingots, which are actually quite rare to get. And you just keep like upgrading this weapon. And then if you sell the weapon, it would still be fabled, but it would lose all of its experience. And it would keep your name. So, like, the idea being that if you crafted something amazing or whatever, right? Like, or the person who originally crafted it, they could, like, make it a fabled item, and then they could use it, or they could, like, slap their crafting tag on it, and then they can sell it on, and it would reset all the XP on the item. So this is like a min-max system of, like, hey, I've got my end, because obviously one of the problems is, at the end of the game, you replace your weapon way less, right? And weapons have this iconic thing where we love naming weapons and then feeling like our own. And if we're replacing them very rarely, then it's nice to have like another progression level that is min-maxy. And I love the idea that you can kind of change how it works slightly to suit your build. And obviously it takes more and more time to get to 4 or 5 tiers. And then here's like an example of... see you later, Gub. Thanks for sticking around, mate, and I really appreciate the sub. So then the idea is like that each of the tiers would have like a kind of function, right? So the first tier would be like a basic mod. So it's like chance for X ailment, you know, X to attributes, attribute requirement. These are kind of like basic things. Then you get like a utility or a quality of life mod. Something like swapping this weapon has no delay. I think that shouldn't be in there. Oops. But yeah, swapping the weapon has no delay. Enemies can't regenerate whilst they're bleeding. These are all like axe-focused examples. Weapon-specific skill effects then come in at 3, which is, you know, vile skills require less souls, or throwing skills slow enemies. But these are all like basically very focused around the weapon type and what the weapon type's meant to do. Maybe, you know, then you've got high-end utility, and then finally you've got the big mods, right? And the 5th tier, once you've used this weapon for like, you know, ages, and you're like, this is my weapon, you can then, you know, and you haven't found an upgrade. That essentially means you're, you know, if you're level 100 and you're not upgrading your weapon, then you haven't upgraded your weapon, then it's probably like the min-maxed weapon. You're probably not going to get anything better by that point. And so at that point, you then can add these super powerful mods on that are like, you know, increased speed mods, increased physical mods, all that sort of stuff that we had in Crucible that were like the super broken OP stuff. So yeah, that is like the Fabled weapon system thing, which I think would just be such a cool system. It would give you that feeling of like, oh yeah, I have, you know, and you could rename the name of it or whatever. Here, obviously you would need a really good like bad word detector, but I think they already have that in the naming thing. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, this was actually the first time that I did this, so this was kind of like what I then used for the breach example that I used for the Atlas rework. But yeah, like this idea that you can just scroll through these options, you know? So like this here is these, right? It's just I didn't, visualize all of these. But, you know, and you can just scroll through and go, okay, do you know what? I'm playing like an axe throwing build. Cool. I want to just really like pick all of the stuff that helps axe throws. And actually I need 20 more int to use this support. So I'm going to use this on here. It's like another character progression system that you get very late into the game that is quite min-maxy. But when you sell that weapon, you lose that and you have to come back to, you know, like you have to rebuild this like relationship with this new weapon. I think that's super cool. I think it's like to the point where like if I ever make a game, I'm like 100% going to use that system as a min-max endgame thing. It doesn't work if you do it early. That's the problem with Crucible, was like you had access to it really early and it was so hard to balance in that way. I think it's really cool when it becomes like, and ultimately who cares about like your relationship with a weapon when it's a rusted sword off the beach? But when it's like this thing that you've honed through like, you know, the fame and glory of the Colosseum, and you've traveled with this thing and it's with you, you know, it becomes like there's something about fantasy fiction which loves like a named weapon that you have built a relationship with. Yeah. Anyway, that is Fabled weapon crafting. Which, yeah, suits the whole Colosseum idea so well. So well. Can you farm experience for the weapon specifically? Yeah, so the weapon would just gain experience alongside you. So as you kill monsters in anything, it gains experience and then goes up, you know, unlocks the next tier, essentially. Super simple. Okay, Zesht, Zalmarath, the Colossus. You were like, oh, yeah. Added AoE. AoE, and then we'll do like max fizz roll, something like that. And then I did see another suggestion down here, which was CDR off the Sekima boss. Yeah. So what's that guy's name, the Sekima boss? What is his name? Zaltot? No, I'm literally saying a Power Ranger boss name, I think. Redaction. Slow, debuff, potency, less effect, slows you. I can't, there's a name for that they use, but it's fine. We'll use the actual terms when we do it. Cooldown reduction. All right. Fabled items ad. Yeah, it's an ad. 100%. So I'm just catching up on the chat. Their word name is a name checker. Okay, so we'd have to, yeah, you'd have to do something to make sure people can call clubs like, you know, like, I don't know, you insert rude thing. Yeah, so that Fabled thing is a super specific end game crafting system. And the reason I think it works really well for weapons is it's really hard, I think, to add like an additional crafting thing to weapons that isn't quite powerful. And you change your weapons so often, like in the sort of mid game and early end game, that it's like I don't think it's hard to make something that's interesting. Basically, I think the enchant system was pretty cool. From Settlers, you know, like the rune enchanting was cool. And I basically think you could fold that into something like that. Do fabled items drop in the Colosseum, or do the weapon you take into the con? So the way that you get Zarok, thank you very much. I will come back to your question. Okay. Yeah. The way that you get the fabled item is through where is it? Through these Colosseum ingots. So these are like from the pinnacle content in the Colosseum. You would get where is it? Yes, you have these basically like great games, and you would get these as a reward from like defeating the hardest content kind of thing, and then you can apply them to become, yeah, you can apply them to become fabled weapons. So you would only want to use these on weapons that, you know, you're like, oh cool, I'm going to be using this for a while, is the idea. Yeah, I did this like UI for it. We had this like melted kind of like Damascus steel kind of golden thing that I thought was pretty cool. Yeah, like this would be, you know, like the item window in your character sheet. So it would have, you know, if you're holding a fabled weapon, it would slightly embellish the item window and stuff, and show you at the bottom on these jewels like how many tiers you've currently got to in it. Yeah, I'm actually super proud. I think this is just a freaking straight up W. I just can't imagine. I can't imagine many of the player base ever being like, cool, we get to like make this like super cool weapon that at endgame feel like our own in some way. Like, how would that ever be an L? Yes, there's obviously power creep in that, but I think you just factor that into. There's ways to like, you know, factor that into the core game, especially at this stage when we're in early access. Yeah. Oh yeah, just like a Damascus steel weapon effect would be lush. Anyway, guys, I think like we're not far off the end of the stream here. I'm super happy with where we've got to with this. This is the way. Yes, you know what? It is a bit. It is kind of. I wonder if I was watching The Mandalorian around that time, because it is very Mandalorian. Very Mandalorian. Yeah, fire away. So I'll just kind of wrap this up, like basically with the crafting stuff. Where I say, like, I'm really happy with. I had a couple of ideas that I talked about, but like where we've got to with fleshing those ideas out. This influence based thing that's tied to the content that you're doing, especially around bosses, I think is freaking sick. I actually think it's sick. Like, I love it. I love the reforging thing, this corruption thing, that needs some major consideration because that is just like how they want to, that really is tied into like what they think about re-rolling in general. And that is a whole like universe of kind of conversation. That's a really big thing to explore, but I think that would be something that Lolcahole could offer a lot of insight into and probably a lot of really good suggestions on. So me and him are going to jump on a stream. We're not sure when. We're probably going to wait till after the live show, of course, to see like what they are actually changing, if anything. And then the rare system, I really love this idea of like veiled rares. So yeah, that is just a freaking cool thing to bring that back. It's like there's so much goodness that we can just bring back in like an elegant, cleaner, more simple way without all the extra content mechanic bloat. And just like keep all the good stuff, keep it small, keep it tight, keep it clean, and then allow for like all the bloat to come, over the many years of PoE 2. It's like, how do you, like, how do you squeeze an orange down into like a cordial, that we can hydrate later? That's the idea. What do you guys? This is a question actually. For any of our US citizens here, or just anyone around the world, I'm like actually curious. Like, what do you guys call what we call squash or cordial? So like, like you take a concentrate of like orange squash or blackberry squash or whatever, and then you're like, hey, and then you put water in it, and obviously you've got your drink. Like, what do you guys call that? I bet this is so funny. I've never asked anyone this. Concentrate. Is that what you call it? Is that are you American? I'm so curious. Are you North American, I should say? You have no idea. What? You just call it concentrate. Oh my god, that is the most American. Like, that makes so much sense. Because it's just exactly what it is. It's very practical. Concentrate. That is so funny. And we call it squash. We are so cute. We are so cute as British people. Some of the things we have is just is adorable. Because you squash the fruit, obviously, to get the juice out of it. So that's why we call it squash. I don't know, like Minute Maid orange, because we have this like, so we have orange juice that is from concentrate, right? Like you guys will have that as well, right? Which is like just juice, it's the juice that you would have with your breakfast or whatever. But then I'm talking about like when you have this bottle and you put a little bit, like we have Ribena as an example. It's like a brand, right? It's like blackberry, I think, and you put it into a glass like that much, and then you fill the rest, like here, and then you fill the rest up, and it's like a juice. This is such a random tangent, but yeah, not from concentrate, but the concentrate itself, they used to sell it. I remember as a kid. Squash is a vegetable category, though. Yeah, this is true. You can get butternut squashes, yeah. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes. We definitely have our weird quirks as well. Minute Maid frozen. What? Wait there. So you guys don't have... Yeah, so I'm not talking about this. I'm not talking about this, to be clear. Because this is just like orange juice, right? It's like cheap orange juice. So you have like fresh orange juice that's like squeezed from the orange, and then you have this like from concentrate, which reminds me of like that quote in oh god, what is it? Role Models, the Role Models film with Paul Rudd, where the kid's like, I don't want none of that from concentrate shit. Now, what I'm talking about is, right, I'm gonna find it. It is Ribena. Okay, so it's this orange squash. Yeah, so Robinson's is like our most famous brand. Orange squash. Orange concentrate. Is this it? Is this a video of it? No, what's going on? Oh god, no, this is some other thing, right? Ribena. A Ribena advert. Imported drink. Oh, you guys aren't going to get this audio. Sorry, I haven't set up a Google Chrome audio source, but you don't even need to hear it. This is an. What is this guy doing? Oh, this has to be a joke. Has to be a joke. No, this has to be a joke. That has to be. So that is like that is the concentrate that should make about like 10 to 15 liters worth of juice. Obviously, he's like, yeah, he's literally like, it's very sugary, and it's strong and it's zesty, and I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. What the hell? That would be so painfully sweet. Anyway, this live stream has gone off the rails. Love it though. Can you tell I've been playing a lot of I've been planning some last Epoch stuff as well recently. Right. No, so squash isn't lemonade. It's not lemonade. It's like okay, okay. Oh, wait there. Bear with me. I'll be back. I'll be back. All right. All right. Okay. We're gonna do this. Can you see this? It's gonna. Yeah. Okay. Maybe I can just go. Wait there. I might just switch over to the cam. To the cam. Oh, I don't know. Clicked the wrong thing. Where are we? Camera. Okay. This is a glass of water. And then this, there's only a tiny bit left in the bottom, but this is a squash. This is Robinson's Fruit Creations squash. And the idea is, I know this is like fucking so obvious, but I'm just like, do you guys not have this? So you would then put this in the bottom normally, but I'm not in the kitchen, and you just probably put like this much, just this much, into your water, into your big glass of water. Fruit syrup, is that what you call it? And now we have like a drink. It's not like super sweet, it's not like juice or anything, but it's kind of like mildly sweet, you know? Ah, delicious. So that guy was just drinking like the pure concentrate stuff. You call that lemonade. Limonada. Oh, lemonade. Yeah. So that's right. So this is, I feel like I'm learning so much. I feel like I'm learning so much. So you guys don't even have this. It is a thing in the States. Ah, but it's actually just a drink. I know these bots. I know. I'll get something set up. I will get a mod at some point, and we'll figure this out. Okay, wait. I'll switch back to the capture. Here you go. Yeah. So this is the thing. So the point of these is that you're not really drinking much sugar. So that, well, actually, this is like a zero sugar thing. This is like, you know, a Spartum or whatever. Oh, you did offer to mod. Well, thank you very much. I missed that. I don't even know how to make people mods, so that's a fun thing. But after the stream, why don't I just, I'll do it. I know Guitar, you're like super switched on with this stuff. Oh, that's like, yeah, so you get like that, like it's like 30 times out of this. Citroen. Original Citroen, which is lemon, I imagine. Caravan Civitam. Caravan Civitam. My housemate's Hungarian, and I try and pronounce things like I'll be like, can you teach me something? And he'll be like, yeah, sure. And he'll be like, da 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 da. And I'll be like, oh, cool, da 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 da. He's like, no, you're not saying it right. And we'll stand there for about 15 minutes because I can't apparently say like the right thing. Yeah. I'll hit you up on hit me up on Discord post stream and we'll figure out the mod thing. Brotendo, how you doing, mate? So we have been cooking some we've been cooking some item crafting, very early stage item crafting stuff. Yeah, feel free to post links, that's fine. Like, I'm lucky that like the stream isn't at a point where I have like 200 people trying to like scam me or whatever. Yeah, so this is like already made, isn't it? This stuff, yeah, if you've just come into the stream, Brotendo, we are talking about squash, what we call orange squash or fruit squash in the UK, but apparently is like very rare elsewhere, which is interesting. Yeah, it's already made this stuff, right? Like this will be like super high sugar, like juice cocktail. It literally says juice cocktail on there. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we've been redesigning we got distracted there. But yeah, we've been redesigning some crafting stuff and rethinking how crafting could work and like what some cool ways they could change the crafting system on a pretty fundamental way, but like that isn't totally alien to the existing systems. Come up some really cool stuff, changes to rare system, changes to how you can potentially reforge items, and then this like new influenced implicit thing to make bases cool. But we've kind of done, so I've been streaming for, I don't know exactly how long now. Does it tell me on my stats? But yeah, we've basically been streaming for a few hours. It's getting pretty late here. We've got a podcast tomorrow with Try, so that is at 9 p.m. GMT. 3 hours and 4 minutes, thank you. So yeah, 9 p.m. GMT tomorrow. We are going to be streaming with Try, Dreamcore, and Gavrin. It should be a good chat. We just kind of do that like pre-GGG live show chat with our predictions. We're gonna do like this funny like joint bingo card thing, where it's like a competitive bingo card where we all get a line each, and then we'll have like points associated with it, which should be funny. Might have to do a little forfeit or something, as we're known to do on this channel. Like we did with the Ascendancy battles way back. Where we'll do some sort of forfeit, like the winner gets, we will have to give them a divine orb or something like that. Would be fun in the new league. What else? Yeah, so we're doing this, and then we looked at Fabled items and stuff. But yeah, I think this is probably like a really good time to probably wrap up the stream, and yeah, and then go from here. So yeah, basically what we're gonna do, we've been brainstorming this stuff, and then we're gonna do a stream after the live show. We're going to do a stream with Lolcahol, and we're going to explore these ideas a bit further, get his ideas on it, and then we'll probably put out a video. I'll probably wrap all those ideas into like a nice, presentation like I usually do with the stuff on my channel, and we'll put that out as a video on YouTube. We might even do it in multiple parts, so some of it might go onto Lolcahol's channel if he wants to. I'm totally open to anything like that. So yeah, we'll see how it works out, but yeah, thanks so much, guys. It's been like such a cool stream. Like we had some really good ideas. Your feedback has been super helpful. I love that we've got this like cool little community building that's like of people who are reasonable. You guys are very reasonable, and I appreciate it. And also just like super creative. They're also just into like obviously the design side of things, like I am. these ideas I think we can expand on a lot. I'm very excited about visualizing these and actually doing some like item mockups and stuff, you know, where like we'll do like a proper item mockup where we actually put like some of these influence mods in here and we'll do some little artwork bits. So yeah. Um yeah. Yeah, it was cool. I'm gonna really try, and I think technically we've had like no major issues with the stream from what I'm aware of. We've got a few people on YouTube, a few people on Twitch, multi-streaming. It's all been good. I'm so happy, guys. I had to spend so much money on a new PC, and then it all fell apart, and so I'm really glad that we're finally here. Um, yeah. Cheers, cheers, cheers. Thanks, Alamanda. Thank you, guys. Adam, Greg. Cool. Wicked. I'm stoked. All right, guys. Yeah. Once again, thank you very much. I'll continue to improve the streams. Obviously, I wanna. Ah, wicked, wicked. I wanna like keep doing this, and I wanna like try and have more time to make more content. So I'm gonna keep pushing the channel. I'm gonna try and get more and more support. I really appreciate you guys who have like obviously financially supported me today. Yeah, like I really appreciate you getting behind me, and the plan is to try and try and grow the YouTube a bit more so that I'm getting a little bit more income from there, and then it'll be a lot easier for me to take time away from work and stuff, and eventually make more and more content. So yeah, sick. Yeah, we'll figure it out as we go. I will DM you guys about modding. Thank you so much, really appreciate that. And yeah, much love, guys. I'll see you in the next one. I'm gonna try and make them more regular. Peace. This is where I have to like find the stop button now. Usually I'd like have that ready on like a Steam Deck or something, right? But yeah, I actually do have a Steam Deck. I just haven't properly set it up.